Kathleen woke up early in the morning when the first rays of the sun were barely beginning to break through the light, snow-white curtains of her spacious bedroom. Lying in a wide, soft bed that seemed like a cloud, she closed her eyes for a moment, listening to the sounds around her. Behind the open doors of the terrace, one could hear the calm whisper of the ocean waves, which rolled onto the shore with quiet melodiousness. This sound reminded her of the infinity and harmony of nature. She lay in silence, feeling the fresh sea air lightly tingle her skin, mixing with the scent of the flowers that grew in the garden around the villa. It was only the second day of her unexpected vacation, and she was still getting used to its rhythm. Kathleen looked up at the room's high ceilings, adorned with elegant wooden beams, then turned her gaze to the space around her. The villa she rented in the Maldives was a dream come true. Spacious, bright rooms, elegant interiors, and stunning views of the turquoise ocean that stretched to the horizon. In moments like this, Kathleen felt especially strongly the value of being free and working for herself. No strict bosses, no schedules squeezed into rigid frames. She was in charge of her time, her desires, her life. The thought of this brought a special pleasure, similar to what a person experiences when he spreads his wings after a long imprisonment. A slight smile touched her lips as she imagined herself in the past, the one who still doubted whether she was capable of anything more than simply following other people's rules. Now, lying in this luxurious villa, Kathleen felt an inner satisfaction, as if confirmation that her efforts, risks, and faith in herself were not in vain. She could allow herself such moments, such luxurious pauses in the usual flow of affairs. The day promised to be long and calm, and she suddenly realized how rarely she allowed herself to just stop, enjoy the moment, and not rush anywhere. At 30 years old, Kathleen was a shining example of what can be achieved through perseverance, courage, and self-belief. She built a brilliant career as a professional stock market trader, where daily decisions made at lightning speed brought her not just a stable income, but millions of dollars a year. This gave her the freedom to live the life she had always dreamed of, renting the best villas by the ocean, enjoying vacations in the most picturesque parts of the world, and surrounding herself with luxuries that few can afford. Her current life resembled a picture from a glossy magazine. Spacious, bright rooms, decorated with exquisite taste, panoramic windows overlooking turquoise waves that gently touched the snow-white sand, and time completely her own. It seemed that she had everything one could dream of. But behind this perfection, there was a long history of overcoming and transformation. Despite the success and confidence that emanated from her now, as a teenager, Kathleen was not someone who was looked upon with admiration. She remembered that young girl with long, unkempt brown hair and a stooped posture. Her flat chest, disproportionately large nose, and pale skin often became a source of jokes from her peers. In those years, she felt like a gray mouse who, despite her dreams and aspirations, could not attract attention, especially from guys who looked past her. These memories remained somewhere in the past, but they never completely disappeared. They became the fuel for her desire for change. Kathleen worked on herself with the same obsession with which she built her career. Cosmetology, plastic surgery, sports, and endless experiments with her appearance turned her into a woman who could be the main character in a commercial about beauty and success. Now her well-groomed hair shimmered in the sun with shades of dark chocolate, her skin looked fresh and radiant, and her figure was ideal, as if created according to all the canons of harmony. Every glance in the mirror reminded her of the journey she had come. But deep down she knew, behind this perfection there was more than just cosmetics or surgery. She had fortitude, tenacity, and that undying belief that she could be better than those around her had ever told her. Kathleen was grateful to herself for not giving up one day, and now she could look forward with pride, without forgetting where she started on her journey. In high school, the girl was in love with her classmate Andrew, the most desirable guy in the class. However, he did not reciprocate her feelings and even mocked her. Andrew always hung out with beautiful girls who had already grown breasts and who skillfully applied makeup. He wasn't interested in Kathleen at all. After the painful experience of an unrequited school crush, which left young Kathleen with bitterness and a sense of her own insignificance, An idea arose in her head that became her main life goal. She firmly decided, one day she will become the woman of her dreams, the one who cannot be ignored. Her goal wasn't just limited to looks. She wanted to change everything: her life, her prospects, and her attitude towards herself. After school, Kathleen purposefully entered the university, choosing one of the most prestigious and difficult study programs. She studied hard, realizing that education was her first step towards independence. Her classmates often dreamed of rich husbands who could provide them with a luxurious life. But Kathleen had completely different plans. Her advantage was that she knew from the very beginning she had to rely only on herself. This realization made her strong and driven, allowing her to take the hurt she experienced in her youth and channel it into constructive channels. After graduating from university, Kathleen immediately took a job in the financial sector of a large company. At 25, she was already earning $10,000 a month, an impressive amount for her age. However, this work did not bring her happiness. Her boss, a man with an aggressive manner and a tendency towards sexism, behaved unfairly. Kathleen saw every day that it was not the most competent employees who were promoted, but those who were more attractive. For him, she was just an inconspicuous gray mouse whose merits he ignored. This resentment only strengthened her determination to change her life. Her inner voice one day became too loud to ignore. Realizing that she could no longer tolerate injustice and undeserved humiliation, Kathleen decided to take a drastic step. By that time, she already had enough knowledge and experience to work for herself. She left the company and plunged headlong into the world of stock market trading, where every decision made could bring both huge profits and significant losses. It was a risk, but it was the risk that always inspired her to act. The first months as a sole trader were difficult. Long, sleepless nights, constantly studying market trends, and endless attempts to hone my skills. But her persistence paid off. A few years later, her capital exceeded $1 million. This success was not just a financial achievement for her. It was a symbol of her victory over circumstances that once seemed insurmountable. With $1 million capital, her life began to change. Luxurious trips, the opportunity to live in the best houses, and enjoy the comfort that she had only dreamed of before. But what pleased her most was that this success was solely her merit. Kathleen has proven to herself and the world that she can not only achieve her goals, but also rise above any expectations. Kathleen always dreamed of her transformation, and this dream was so vivid that for many years she saved money, denying herself excesses for the sake of one goal: to become a woman who cannot be ignored. She believed that every dollar invested was an investment in her future, in her confidence and happiness. And then, at the age of 30, she realized the moment had come. She no longer wanted to wait, but was ready to take fate into her own hands. The first step to a new me was changing my hair color. Kathleen opted for platinum blonde, a shade that highlighted her fresh, tan skin and blue eyes that were brightened by the transformation. She had grown her hair down to her buttocks, and now it flowed like silk, framing her face every morning. This was her pride, a thick, shiny mane that attracted the admiring glances of others. But the most important change was the facial surgery, which she thought through to the smallest detail. Kathleen corrected the shape of her nose, making it graceful and proportional. She slightly enlarged her lips, giving them the sensuality she had long dreamed of. These changes were subtle but significant, and every time she looked in the mirror, she saw the reflection of the woman she had created with her own hands. For her, it was not just an appearance, it was a new chapter of her life. Kathleen didn't stop there. Her love of beauty and self-expression blossomed into yet another aspect: makeup. If 10 years ago her makeup bag consisted of foundation and light lipstick, now she had a whole arsenal of high-end cosmetics. Her cosmetic cabinet was amazing in its variety. There were about 30 shades of lipsticks alone, from classic red to delicate peach. The eyeshadow range ran the gamut, from neutral nude tones to deep, dramatic colors. Silky textures, luxurious packaging, every detail spoke of her attention to quality and style. She took no time to take care of herself. Her daily makeup ritual became a kind of meditation: applying foundation, lightly tapping the blush brush, highlighting her cheekbones with highlighter and the final touch, choosing a lipstick that matched her mood. This process gave her special pleasure, reminding her that every detail of her image was part of her strength, part of Kathleen who changed her life. From her youth, Kathleen felt painfully insecure about her flat chest, which she considered one of the main reasons for her invisibility to the opposite sex. Looking at her reflection in the mirror, she could not shake the feeling that her femininity seemed to be missing something important. This complex lived inside her for years, fueling her dream of the day when she could fix it and feel truly beautiful. When her financial situation became stable enough, Kathleen decided to take an important step. She turned to the best surgeon in the state, a specialist whose work was renowned for natural and elegant results. After lengthy consultations and careful discussions, she chose implants that gave her breasts a size of 34C. When she first saw the result in the mirror, her eyes filled with tears of joy. This was the fulfillment of her long-time dream, but something inside her whispered that it was still not enough. Feeling she could achieve more, Kathleen went under the knife again a year later, this time opting for larger 900cc implants. The result exceeded her expectations. Now her breasts were not just enlarged, but impressively rounded, firm, perfectly emphasizing her thin waist and proportionate figure. Every time she passed by the mirror, she could not resist looking admiringly at her forms, which had now become her pride. Her new image inevitably attracted the attention of men, causing their gazes to linger on her longer than usual. For Kathleen, this was not just an aesthetic change, it was a symbol of her inner victory over uncertainty and old pain. But she didn't stop at the chest. Her goal and ideal body required not only surgical interventions, but also tireless work on herself. Kathleen has made the gym her second home. She trained with such tenacity as if she was proving her strength to the whole world. Her mornings began with intense cardio training, followed by an hour of weight training. Every rep, every set strengthened her body and her spirit. She literally sculpted herself into a masterpiece, perfecting every detail. Now, every part of her body was toned and sexy. The narrow waist emphasized the curves of her hips. Her slender legs looked like they were painted by Renaissance artists, and her arms, although still feminine, were strong and strong. She could wear a tight dress or swimsuit and be sure that her image would be admired. However, despite all the changes that Kathleen embodied in her appearance and life, she never found what she was perhaps looking for most: true happiness in marriage. Over the years, she managed to be in various relationships, but each time the story ended the same. Her partners couldn't or wouldn't accept her for who she was. Some saw her excessive sexuality as a threat and suspected her of infidelity, being jealous even of the casual glances of other men. Others felt depressed by her success, unable to accept the fact that her income was many times greater than their own. For some, being supported by a woman, even one as beautiful and successful, was a blow to their ego. These cracks invariably damaged the relationship, leaving Kathleen disillusioned and increasingly convinced that she might not be destined to experience real intimacy. Realizing that love brought her more pain than joy, she decided to direct her energy to what had always brought satisfaction: work. Financial markets, with their volatility and unpredictability, became for her not only a source of income, but also a kind of salvation from the emptiness in her personal life. Her career continued to develop rapidly, and each success confirmed that she had made the right choice. Relationships with men turned into fleeting connections. She entered them without any special expectations, often choosing young and inexperienced guys who were fascinated by her spectacular appearance and confidence. It was convenient for Kathleen: no attachment, no disappointments. One day, having completed another major deal, which brought her about $2 million in net profit, Kathleen suddenly felt that she needed something more than just the numbers on the account. Sitting at her massive glass desk overlooking the city skyline, she felt a little empty. Yes, success was her companion, but she realized that she deserved a little pause, a moment for herself to remember why she worked so hard. Wasting no time, she decided to arrange a vacation that would correspond to her status. The very next day, Kathleen, without hesitation, purchased a first-class ticket on the next flight to her dream destination, the Maldives. She pre-rented a luxurious two-story villa located right on the water, with panoramic views of the turquoise ocean. Every detail of this trip was carefully thought out. A personal chef, spa treatments, and complete privacy, which she so desperately needed. She appeared at the airport in an elegant outfit. A perfectly fitting dress emphasized her slender figure, and a stylish bag in her hands complemented the image of a successful and confident woman. The first-class cabin greeted her with soft leather seats and the attention of the staff. As the plane took off, Kathleen leaned back and closed her eyes. She felt the tension of the past months leaving her. On the horizon awaited her warm sand, the whisper of ocean waves, and perhaps a rare moment of peace that she had not experienced for so long. Kathleen had been in high spirits since the morning. After waking up in her luxurious bedroom overlooking the endless ocean, she decided to start the day active. The plan for the morning was simple but intense. First a delicious breakfast, and then an intense workout in one of the resort's most modern gyms. She happily put on her recently purchased Gucci tracksuit. The tight black leggings perfectly accentuated her slender legs and toned thighs, while the crop top with her signature logo barely contained her ample breasts, drawing attention to her flawless figure. She kept her makeup light but dramatic, adding lip gloss and a touch of highlighter to give her skin a natural glow. Kathleen knew she looked amazing, and this gave her even more confidence. Going to the restaurant for breakfast, she enjoyed the morning sunlight that softly caressed her skin and the aroma of fresh coffee wafting from somewhere far away. Entering the spacious restaurant, decorated in light colors with tropical elements, Kathleen chose a table by the window, which overlooked the sparkling ocean. Her food choices were simple but sophisticated: fresh fruit, some yogurt, a small avocado toast, and a cup of flavored cappuccino. She enjoyed every bite, feeling the harmony between the tastes and the views around her. As she took her last sip of coffee, her gaze suddenly fell on the figure of a man sitting at the next table. Her heart froze for a moment and then began to beat faster. He was tall, with black, slightly tousled hair, a neatly trimmed beard, and a body that clearly belonged to a man who spent hours at the gym. The bright t-shirt hugged his chest and abs tightly, emphasizing every muscle. His hands, strong and tanned, lay on the table while he enthusiastically told his interlocutor something. This face seemed painfully familiar to her, and suddenly a clear picture from the past surfaced in her head. It was Andrew. The same Andrew who 20 years ago, during her school years, made her feel small and insignificant. Scenes flashed in my memory, his mocking jokes, mocking laughter, a look full of superiority. In those days, he was a thin teenager with a sharp tongue and a stubborn character. Now, sitting in front of her was a man who barely resembled that school bully. His body looked like it had been worked hard, his pecs and abs stretching the fabric of his t-shirt to the limit. His features remained almost the same, but became more mature, stronger, as if he himself had gone through a long path of change, just like her. Kathleen felt a sudden excitement as soon as she looked at Andrew. Memories of her first love flashed with vivid, almost tangible images. She remembered how in her school years she watched him with trepidation, how her heart skipped a beat when he approached, and how cruelly he crushed her young dream with his caustic remarks and ridicule. But now she was different, a confident, successful, and spectacular woman who rarely anyone could resist. And she immediately came up with a plan. First, she wanted to understand whether he would recognize that quiet, inconspicuous classmate in this busty blonde. Sitting at the table, she waited patiently for Andrew to finish breakfast. His every gesture, every glance caused her a strange mixture of emotions. She either smiled slightly, seeing what this once thin teenager had become, or remembered the insults that he had once caused her. Finally, after waiting for him to leave the restaurant, Kathleen stood up, straightened her perfectly fitting tracksuit, and approached him with a slight, almost innocent smile. "Young man, can you tell me where the gym is?" Her voice sounded soft but confident, as if it was just a random request. Andrew turned around, looked at her, and for a split second his eyes showed interest. He quickly looked her up and down: platinum blonde, slender body that was emphasized by every curve of her suit, ample breasts barely contained by a tight top. His gaze lingered a little longer than necessary, but the next moment he returned to his usual indifference. "Sorry, I just arrived here last night and haven't had time to explore the hotel grounds yet," he answered dryly but politely. Inwardly, his thoughts were far from so favorable. This is probably the wife of some fat businessman who has everything in her head except brains, he thought, but immediately averted his eyes so as not to give away his evaluative reaction. Kathleen smiled lightly, as if his answer satisfied her completely. She noticed that he did not recognize her, and this gave her some power over the situation. But her attention was suddenly drawn to one important detail, the wedding ring glistening on the ring finger of his right hand. This small sign made her think, but not back down. Before he could turn around, she asked another question, this time with a hint of innocent curiosity. "Did you come here with your wife?" Andrew nodded, straightening his back slightly. There was a note of pride in his voice as he replied, "Yes, my wife and I are celebrating our honeymoon. We decided not to save money and relax in a really good place." He paused and looked at Kathleen, clearly intending to say goodbye. "Sorry, but my wife is waiting for me in the room. I think I'll go." Kathleen gave him a radiant, but slightly ironic smile. "It's okay. Your wife is very lucky," she said with a slight, almost imperceptible playfulness. "See you." As he began to turn to leave, she, as if by chance, put her hand on his shoulder. This movement was quick, barely noticeable, but she immediately felt the hardness of his muscles under the thin fabric of his t-shirt. For a moment her heart beat faster, but she quickly pulled herself together. His reaction was neutral. He didn't linger a second longer than necessary, but Kathleen knew that the little scene had already left its mark. She looked after him, slightly biting her lip, and thought, well, the game has just begun. After completing an intense workout that left her muscles buzzing with effort, Kathleen headed to the beach to relax and recuperate. The soft, warm sand felt pleasantly against her bare feet, and the light sea breeze gently blew across her skin as she walked to her sun lounger. Making herself comfortable under the umbrella, she adjusted her straw hat and dark sunglasses that hid her expression. She looked like the epitome of luxury, slender, glamorous, with an aura of confidence that could not be ignored. Kathleen thought back to her morning conversation with Andrew. Every detail of it caused her a storm of emotions. She saw in front of her not just a man who had once been her nightmare at school. Now he has become a challenge for her, the target of her desire. The thought of seducing him, making him lose his head and cheat on his wife, aroused excitement in her. It wasn't just a wish, it was a game she wanted to win, proving to herself that she was no longer the insecure girl from before. However, it is one thing to want, and quite another to make the desire come true. She had to come up with a plan that would win Andrew over. But fate seemed to decide to intervene, giving her the opportunity to act before she had time to plan anything. The next morning, while enjoying a walk along the beach, Kathleen walked leisurely along the water's edge. The waves gently washed her feet, leaving barely noticeable marks on the sand that immediately disappeared. She admired the stunning landscape, the play of the sun on the water, the serene sky, and small clouds that seemed painted. And suddenly her gaze caught a familiar figure. The man walked towards him. His confident gait betrayed a man accustomed to attention. With every step he came closer, Kathleen immediately recognized Andrew. The only clothing he was wearing were short, dark swim shorts that showed off his athletic build. His tan skin glistened in the sun, and every muscle on his magnificent torso looked as if it had been carved from stone. His abs, with perfectly defined six-packs, moved in time with his steps, and his broad shoulders and strong arms created the image of a real alpha male. Kathleen paused, pretending to straighten her hair, but in reality she couldn't look away. She didn't just look, she looked at him, studying him, admiring him. His body, his confidence, even the way he moved, all this aroused a strong attraction in her. She felt her heart begin to beat faster, but her face remained calm, as if this was just a chance meeting. As Andrew came closer, he glanced at her briefly. His eyes lingered for a moment, as if he was thinking about something. But the next moment, he looked forward again as if nothing had happened. Kathleen couldn't help but notice this and smiled slightly. This game was just beginning, and she was determined to win it. Andrew has really changed a lot since his school days, when he was a skinny teenager with a sharp personality. Now he looked like a hero from the cover of a fitness magazine. His broad chest and massive shoulders, every muscle of which was clearly defined as if created for admiration, made an incredible impression. His eight-pack abs looked like they were sculpted by sculptors, and his powerful biceps added strength and confidence to his look. He was the epitome of masculinity, and Kathleen couldn't help but notice how her eyes lingered on every detail of his body. Realizing that there might not be another chance to start a conversation, she took a deep breath, adjusted her skimpy swimsuit, which perfectly emphasized her figure, and decisively walked towards him. A light but confident smile played on her face, capable of disarming almost any man. "Hello, do you remember me from last night at the restaurant?" Her voice sounded casual, but with a subtle hint of flirtation. Andrew looked up at her, but his reaction was calm, even slightly distant. He glanced at her, lingering for a moment at her striking figure, but showed no particular interest. "Oh yes, hi," he answered dryly, nodding politely. Kathleen decided not to give up. She knew that she could cope with his coldness, because over the years of a successful career and complex transactions, she had learned to read people and find an approach to them. She cast an appraising glance at him and, tilting her head to the side, continued. "Why are you walking alone? Where is your wife?" Andrew narrowed his eyes, a hint of irritation appearing in his eyes. He looked at her briefly, as if deciding whether to answer. "I don't know why this interests you so much," he said, his voice becoming a little harsher. "But Nikki is now on the embankment, painting a new landscape. She is an artist." Kathleen heard the warm pride in his voice when he mentioned his wife, but that didn't dissuade her. However, Andrew's next words were as harsh as a cold shower. "Listen, it seems to me that you have someone to relax with here. You can go back to your wallet and not waste your time on a man who loves his wife." For a moment, Kathleen felt the blood rush to her face. His words were offensive, especially the reference to wallet. She clenched her fingers so as not to show her irritation, but instead of leaving, she maintained a slight smile, hiding her feelings behind it. This answer only fueled her excitement. Andrew clearly resisted, but for her it was a challenge, not a reason to retreat. A light lit up in her eyes, and looking after him, she was already thinking about how best to continue this game. Kathleen was stunned for a moment when she heard Andrew's words. She expected different things, perhaps light flirting, cold ignoring, but definitely not such harsh and derogatory conclusions. However, instead of being offended, she suddenly laughed loudly. Her laugh was ringing, confident, and slightly mocking, as if she wanted to show that his barbs didn't hurt her at all. "So you think I'm just a typical brainless doll and some old man's trophy wife?" she asked challengingly, narrowing her eyes and taking a step closer so that he could sense her confidence. "What about the missing ring on my hand?" she added, defiantly raising her palm so that he could see that her fingers were empty. Her lips curved into a slight smirk, but there was a spark in her eyes that betrayed her wounded pride. Kathleen ran her hand through her long, shiny hair and added, more quietly, but with obvious pride, "Listen, I achieved everything myself. With your mind, with your work. Yes, I worked hard to be where I am now. And as for my appearance, doesn't a single woman have the right to be beautiful for herself and not for someone else? I do this not for daddies or husbands, but for myself, because I can, because I want to." Andrew looked at her with his arms crossed over his chest. His gaze was almost mocking, but something in her words made him linger. He was a man who despised any manifestation of artificial beauty. For him, plastic surgery, like any radical changes in appearance, was a sign of insecurity and dependence on other people's opinions. Therefore, her statements about independence and strength sounded contradictory to him. However, he found himself thinking that her assertiveness and confidence had piqued his curiosity. "So you're saying that your body wasn't bought with Daddy's money?" His voice sounded harsh, but a note of interest appeared in it. He tilted his head slightly to the side, as if trying to get a better look at her. "I will never believe this," he added, and a barely noticeable grin appeared on his lips. Kathleen responded with a look full of challenge. She felt that his words were an attempt to keep his distance, but behind this mask of indifference there was interest. She could almost feel him trying to figure her out, and it only increased her excitement. Instead of making excuses, she decided to leave the situation in suspense, teasing him with her silence and a look that spoke more than any words. Kathleen quickly realized that her words began to destroy the wall of coldness and mistrust that Andrew had erected between them. His gaze changed, a slight tinge of curiosity appeared in it, and Kathleen realized that her plan had worked. Now he was ready to talk to her, albeit with some skepticism. This was her small victory, and she decided to take advantage of the moment. "Then let me prove that not all beautiful girls are mindless kept women," she said with a slight smile, crossing her arms over her chest and giving her tone a friendly but confident tone. "I'm not going to seduce you or anything like that. I came here alone and just wanted to talk to someone." She paused so that he could digest her words and, softening her voice a little, added, "But first." Kathleen extended her hand to him. Her palm was warm and confident, her gaze slightly mischievous, but sincere. "I'm Kathleen." Andrew hesitated for a second, as if he still doubted whether to engage in this strange dialogue. But his upbringing and, perhaps, interest prevailed. He extended his hand in response, his strong fingers closed around her palm, and he said briefly, "Andrew." After a short handshake, he looked at her no longer as distantly as before. He still had a hard time believing her sincerity, but her assertiveness and demeanor intrigued him. "Well, if you just want to talk, how about we take a walk on the beach?" He suggested, a subtle hint of challenge in his voice, as if he was testing her intentions. Kathleen nodded, a slight smile touching her lips. They walked along the water, and a strange but interesting tension developed between them. The waves gently rolled onto the shore, leaving a foamy trail, and the morning light played with reflections on the sand and water. Kathleen, sensing that Andrew was still wary, decided to keep the conversation neutral. She told him about her successful career as a trader, the challenges she faced, and the moments of triumph that made her who she became. Andrew listened, his face remained expressionless, but occasionally he nodded, asking clarifying questions. Kathleen noticed that there was sometimes a flicker of respect in his eyes, even if he tried not to show it. She continued to speak without undue pomposity, avoiding boasting, but showing that her achievements were the result of her own work. "And you?" she suddenly asked, taking a step closer to him to block the light wind. "Tell me about your wife. Did you say she's an artist? This is so interesting. What kind of paintings does she paint?" Andrew hesitated for a moment, but, sensing that there was no hint of flirtation in her question, he answered a little more willingly. He talked about how his wife, Nikki, is passionate about landscapes and portraits, and how her paintings reflect her soul. He spoke of her with respect and warmth, which Kathleen noticed immediately. She did not interrupt, occasionally asking unobtrusive questions to keep the conversation going. But even though she maintained a friendly tone, her gaze would sometimes sneak a glance at his muscles. Broad shoulders, defined back muscles, strong arms, all this attracted her attention. But she kept herself in control, allowing only slight interest to show in short glances. Andrew didn't seem to notice, or pretended not to notice, and this fueled her excitement even more. During the leisurely walk, Kathleen learned more about Andrew's life than she expected. He turned out to be not at all the self-confident hooligan she remembered from her school years. Now before her was a man with a simple but rich life. Andrew said he works as a lawyer, specializing in family law. He lived in a small but cozy house in Texas, far from the bustle of big cities. His voice filled with warmth as he mentioned his wife Nikki and their daily routine together. It was clear that he was truly happily married, and his family life seemed to him a comfortable and reliable haven. Kathleen, listening to him, suddenly felt a slight sympathy for this man growing. It turned out to be deeper and more interesting than she expected. They both got carried away in conversation, discussing everything from travel to their favorite books. Andrew told stories from his work, sometimes with humor, sometimes with seriousness, and Kathleen shared her life, while avoiding any unnecessary details that might show her in too bright a light. They enjoyed the conversation, which unexpectedly filled the morning with lightness and a feeling of friendly warmth. At some point, Andrew looked at his watch and, sighing, said, "It's time for me to go back. Nikki is waiting for me in the room, and I promised to help her prepare for her trip tomorrow." Kathleen just nodded, not trying to stop him at all. She decided that she would not force anything. However, before he left, he suddenly looked at her with a slight smile that seemed almost embarrassing to her. "You know, I really was wrong about you, Kat," he said, and there was sincerity in his voice. "You are a very interesting and educated girl. Glad we met." Kathleen smiled back, bowing her head slightly in gratitude. Tomorrow Nikki will go to a neighboring island to look for new landscapes for her paintings. If you don't mind, we could spend time together while she's busy, he suggested, hesitating slightly, as if afraid that his proposal might be taken the wrong way. These words caused inner delight in Kathleen, but she maintained a calm appearance. Her heart beat a little faster. The invitation to spend the day together meant that she had made a strong impression on him. She nodded, holding back her joy, and answered with a slight smile. "Of course, I will be glad. Maybe we can try something unusual. For example, surfing or jet skiing. You won't refuse such an adventure, will you?" Andrew raised his eyebrows slightly, clearly interested in her proposal. "Sounds interesting. I've been wanting to try surfing for a long time, so why not?" he answered, his voice sounding animated. After saying goodbye, he went to his wife, and Kathleen remained on the beach, looking after him. A mixture of emotions was seething inside her: joy, excitement, and a strange feeling of triumph. She knew that tomorrow would be their new beginning. It doesn't matter what happens next, but today she felt like a winner. The evening was truly perfect for romance. On the veranda where Andrew and Nikki had dinner, soft candlelight reflected on the crystal glasses, and the scent of fresh flowers and salty breeze hung in the air. The ocean stretched out before them, its calm surface shimmering silver in the moonlight. Nikki looked sophisticated and gentle. Her light brown hair was tied up in a messy bun, and her light dress set off her natural beauty. She spoke about her creative plans, telling what new landscapes she hoped to capture on canvas tomorrow, and her voice sounded melodious and calm. Andrew smiled, nodding at her words, but in reality his thoughts were elsewhere. He suddenly found himself listening to her with half an ear, and a completely different image popped into his head. Instead of Nikki's sweet face, Kathleen appeared before his mind's eye, her bright, plump lips, platinum hair, rich makeup that made her features almost perfect. He saw her smile, heard her voice, which sounded confident and insolent. These memories were too clear to simply brush them aside. His gaze lingered for a moment on Nikki's face. She was very pretty, with soft features and a natural charm that did not require bright colors. Her eyes, large and bright, reflected kindness, and her hands, slightly stained with paint, spoke of her love for her work. This face has always been for him a symbol of home comfort, warmth, and stability. But why now, looking at her, did he feel strangely uneasy? Why, instead of thinking about his wife, did he increasingly return to thoughts about his new acquaintance? These thoughts worried him. Kathleen was the embodiment of what he had always despised: flamboyance, emphasized artificiality, deliberate sexuality. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that she had destroyed all his stereotypes. She was an intelligent, independent, confident woman who was not afraid to express her thoughts and defend her principles. She was not at all what he had imagined her to be at first, and that's what made her even more intriguing. Andrew felt an internal conflict growing within him. He tried to repress these thoughts, repeating to himself that they were inappropriate. Nikki was his wife, his partner, his muse. He loved her. But then why didn't he tell her about meeting Kathleen? Nikki wasn't jealous, she always trusted him, and that was what made their marriage so strong. However, Andrew chose to remain silent. Was he afraid that by mentioning Kathleen, he would only increase her influence on his thoughts? Nikki asked something, and Andrew came back to reality with an effort. He quickly smiled and answered, trying to hide his confusion. But there was still a voice inside him, reminding him that, despite all his determination and love for his wife, he could not get Kathleen out of his head. It scared him. Scarecrow because he understood. His thoughts were beginning to cross the line behind, which were hidden questions to which he did not want to look for answers. After dinner, the couple sat hugging and looking at the starry sky. Suddenly, Nikki took her husband's hand and led him into the bedroom. They had sex. "What's gotten into you today? Of course, sometimes I like rough sex, but today you were special about it. I didn't mean to hurt you, honey. You're just so damn sexy today." Andrew hugged her, remembering Kathleen's massive breasts again. At night, he was tormented by insomnia. He thought about fidelity and convinced himself of his love for his wife. However, he had other thoughts. For the first time, Andrew thought about how monotonous his and Nikki's intimate life had been. For 10 years of marriage, he did not even think about the fact that his wife was taking the initiative in something new. She didn't even seem particularly interested in sex, and she did it without much pleasure. The next morning, during a joint breakfast, after which Nikki had to leave for the whole day on a neighboring island, the couple had a pleasant conversation. Nikki asked what Andrew was going to do, to which he replied that he would spend the day lying on the beach and reading a book. She kissed him goodbye and went to the boat that was supposed to take her to the neighboring island. After breakfast, Andrew lay down in the room, enjoying the view from the panoramic windows. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Andrew, who was wearing only tight boxers, hurried to open it, confident that it was the hotel service. What he saw behind the door amazed him. Kathleen stood there, dressed in a skimpy swimsuit that emphasized all the charms of her body. She was wearing a stylish hat and large dark glasses with opaque lenses. "Good morning. I ordered 2 jet skis for us. They are already ready. Ready to have some fun." Although there was no sexual connotation in her phrase, Andrew felt something special. He tried to take his eyes off Kathleen's flat stomach and her beautiful large breasts. I wouldn't like to refuse, but I looked at the rental prices of jet skis here and not sure if I can pay for it. There were a lot of expenses for the villa. Don't worry, I'll pay for everything. Consider it a gift in honor of meeting you." Kathleen felt proud again, realizing that she was much richer than her school bully. "Then, as agreed, I'll just change my clothes. Wait here for a couple of minutes." Andrew left the room as if nothing had happened, and the pair of new friends headed towards the shore. Since Andrew had never ridden a jet ski in his life, Kathleen offered to use one between them and sat behind the wheel. Riding along the surface of the water, both enjoyed the beautiful weather, the refreshing sea wind, and beautiful scenery. Kathleen drove very briskly and quickly, and Andrew had to hold on tightly to her waist. Suddenly, he realized that he was not looking around at all, but was staring at Kathleen's back. Her velvety skin drove him crazy, but he knew he had to remain faithful to his wife. He consoled himself with the thought, "We are just friends. Can't a friend be more beautiful than his own wife?" Andrew's thoughts were interrupted by a stopped jet ski and Kathleen's offer to try driving it for him. Now the girl was holding on to his waist, feeling every muscle with her hands. It was difficult for Andrew at first, but he soon gained speed without fear and began jumping on the waves. As he jumped, he felt Kathleen press closer to him, and now her huge breasts were pressing directly into his back. "Damn, I can't help it. I want this girl more than anything," Andrew thought. Suddenly, Kathleen called out to him and pointed to the nearest pier, near which there was a chic restaurant. It looked so expensive that one dinner there could cost a month's salary of a young lawyer. "Listen, I think we should go back. I'm really tired, and Nikki will be back soon. I want to meet her." "Come on, we'll just have a snack and a cocktail. Look how beautiful the sunset is." Kathleen led him to the only free table in the restaurant, which, to Andrew's surprise, was in the best location overlooking a wonderful sunset and the ocean. They were immediately greeted by a friendly waiter who addressed Kathleen. "Good evening, Miss Brown. What will you order?" Kathleen ordered without even looking at the menu and continued to admire the sunset. Do you come here often? Judging by the fact that the waiter knows your last name, you are one of the regular guests of this place, Andrew asked. Kathleen smiled slightly before answering. Not really. This is my restaurant. We managed to successfully conclude a deal. The previous owner needed money, and I made him a lucrative offer. 2 years ago, the restaurant was on the verge of bankruptcy, but I managed to restore its popularity. Although, of course, this is not my merit. An old friend worked as a manager at a restaurant in New York, and I offered him a position here. He was able to fix everything, and as you can see, there were plenty of guests. During her story, Andrew tried his best to look into her eyes and not look down at her incredible breasts. He was simply shocked by the success of this woman and had already fallen in love with her, although he himself did not yet realize it. Despite his wealth of experience communicating with girls, he constantly stuttered and could not always find words. Kathleen, on the contrary, continued to talk about herself, captivating the guy with her gentle voice. After finishing his drink, Andrew looked down and looked at his watch. He was stunned to see that more than an hour had passed. Kathleen's story captivated him so much that he completely forgot about time. At that moment, for the first time in a long time, he remembered Nikki. She must have already returned and is worried why I am still not here. We need to return urgently. Kathleen noticed the confusion in his gaze and immediately offered to take him back on a speedboat. However, deep down, she was very pleased with herself and did not feel guilty at all. Like any wise woman, she understood that even a small mistake by a man during the honeymoon could lead to a quarrel. However, Kathleen immediately called the waiter and asked to urgently order a transfer to the hotel for them. There was little talking on the way back. Andrew was racked with guilt and wondered how he would apologize to Nikki. Kathleen considered further details of her plan, although this was no longer necessary. When the boat arrived, the couple said goodbye with a friendly hug and went back to their villas. During the hug, Andrew again felt Kathleen's massive breasts touch him and immediately pulled away. He dreamed of touching her. Before saying goodbye, they exchanged accounts on social networks and agreed to meet after the holiday. Andrew immediately made it clear that he would spend the rest of the holiday with his wife in order to avoid possible betrayal. When Andrew entered the room, at first it seemed to him that Nikki had not yet returned, and he was happy, but soon he saw her on the veranda. "Hello, how was your trip?" "Nothing special. I'm more interested in how your day was, since you were so busy that you didn't meet me." "Honey, I just forgot about the time. Found a friend, we played billiards," Andrew lied, knowing that the truth would only make the situation worse. "I'm glad you had a good time, and now you can go. I want to be alone. I'm very tired." "Darling, I didn't want to offend you. I was just delayed. Why make a big deal out of it? If this is a trifle for you, let me remind you that we are on our honeymoon, during which we wanted to be together all the time. Listen, I understand that you are not in the best mood. Let's discuss everything tomorrow, and now let's go to bed." Nikki stopped being angry. Andrew hugged her and put her to bed. She quickly fell asleep due to a busy day on the island. Andrew himself decided to take a walk along the shore and go to a bar. He needed to think about all the confusion that had befallen him. He sat at the bar alone, finishing his third glass of bourbon, and thought about how to apologize to his beloved wife. The bar was not quiet at all, more like a nightclub, only with less loud music. People were dancing and having fun around. Suddenly, he felt someone touch his shoulder. He turned around and saw Kathleen. She was wearing a light white blouse and miniskirt, looking very sexy. One glance was enough to notice the absence of a bra. "Yes, of course, I believed your 'see you later,' but I didn't think it would be so soon," Kathleen jokes. "Nikki was tired after the trip and fell asleep, so I decided to relax a little. Listen, you need to rest not only your mind, but also your body. Let's dance. This is the best way to distract yourself, trust me." In another situation, Andrew would have refused the girl, especially after a quarrel with his own wife. But this time he drank a lot and agreed without a doubt. The couple moved smoothly to the slow music, hugging each other. Looking into Kathleen's eyes, Andrew realized that mutual desire was burning in them, but he was holding back with all his might, and the girl acted carefully, waiting for the first step. However, the music suddenly stopped, and it became clear that the bar was closing. "Thank you for the dance, but it's late. Let me take you home and go to my place." Kathleen agreed to this proposal, and they headed towards her villa. Walking to the door, Kathleen opened it and stood in front of Andrew. "Can I ask you a question? Are we friends?" "Of course, yes. Why do you ask?" "Can't there be sex between friends? Admit it, you want this yourself." Normally, Andrew would have been shocked by such a question, but now his decision was influenced by the whiskey he drank. The couple was silent for a few seconds, looking at each other, but then Andrew said, "To hell with him." Andrew moved towards Kathleen, his eyes sparkling with excitement, and their lips met in a passionate kiss. He picked her up, because thanks to his strong muscles, he could easily lift the fragile girl and carried her inside. They had sex. For several minutes, the room was filled with silence, broken only by their breathing. They both lay there, trying to recover from the best sex of their lives. "I love you," Andrew whispered quietly, looking at her. Kathleen smiled and hugged him tightly. The next morning, Andrew woke up with the clear understanding that his life had changed forever. He decided to tell Nikki everything so that he would no longer live a lie. Their honeymoon had come to an unexpected and painful end, but he knew his heart now belonged to Kathleen. Andrew got out of bed and went into the shower to wash off the remnants of the night's passion. He knew that a difficult conversation with Nikki awaited him ahead, but there was nowhere to retreat. When he returned to the room, Kathleen was still lying on the bed, exhausted from their wild night. Andrew sat down next to her and took her hand. The situation looked strange. A naked girl was lying next to him, and he was preparing to destroy his old life. "I'm an honest person, and I don't like lies," he began. "I'll tell Nikki everything today so as not to cause her unnecessary pain. Even though we only spent 2 days together, I realized that I want to be with you. Will you marry me?" The proposal sounded unexpected and perhaps not very romantic, but that didn't matter to Kathleen. She looked at him with tired eyes, as if she were studying a work of art. Before her was a man with an impeccable body, strong arms, a powerful torso, and, most importantly, a huge heart. "Yes, my beloved," she answered with a smile. "I think it would be best to return to New York tomorrow. I'll get the tickets." Andrew coldly and confidently ended his relationship with Nikki that same morning. She cried on his shoulder as she listened to him admit to cheating on him just a few hours ago. He felt sorry for her, but he knew that his feelings for her were no longer the same as they had been before. After flying first class to New York, Kathleen confidently led Andrew through the busy airport terminal and into a luxurious black car with tinted windows that was waiting for them at the gate. There was an atmosphere of comfort inside the car, soft leather seats, dim lights, and quiet, unobtrusive music. Andrew, looking out the window at the sparkling lights of the streets of Manhattan, felt a slight excitement. He didn't know what to expect next, but the anticipation of something new and unknown made this moment special. Kathleen took him to her apartment, a luxurious penthouse in the heart of New York. As they entered the building, Andrew noticed how the receptionist, as if by magic, hurried to open the door for them, greeting Kathleen by name. The lobby was spacious, with marble floors and a huge chandelier casting soft light on the sparkling surfaces. The gold-paneled elevator took them silently to the top floor. The doors opened and Andrew found himself in an apartment that seemed made for the pages of a luxury lifestyle magazine. The spacious living room with panoramic windows overlooking the city shining with lights looked like a work of art. A minimalistic leather sofa sat in the center, and paintings in modern frames adorned the walls. A reading nook with a cozy armchair and an impressive collection of books completed the space, giving it a cozy feel. The kitchen, gleaming with chrome surfaces and equipped with the latest technology, was so perfectly organized that it seemed more like a display than intended for real use. But what caught Andrew's attention the most were the high ceilings and the light streaming through the large windows, creating an open and spacious atmosphere. "I don't usually live here," Kathleen said, unobtrusively showing him the apartment. Her voice sounded calm, but there was pride in it. "I prefer to rent it out. But with you, I decided it was time to come back here. There's plenty of room for both of us, and I admit I've always loved the view of the city." Andrew silently looked around the space, feeling a little out of place. He was accustomed to the comfort of his home in Texas, which was simple and comfortable, but did not pretend to be luxurious. This place, on the contrary, embodied success, money and style, everything that he never put at the forefront of his life. However, he couldn't help but appreciate the taste and care that Kathleen put into the space. She clearly wanted to create the perfect conditions for both of them. That same day, without wasting any time, Andrew moved his belongings. Kathleen insisted that he needed to feel at home, and he heeded her words, although he felt strangely uneasy about moving so quickly. She helped him unpack and began organizing the space. When they finished, Kathleen went to the window, looking at the city, which shimmered with thousands of lights, and said quietly, "Welcome home, Andrew. Now this is our home." Her words sounded soft but confident. Andrew looked at her and the view outside the window, again realizing how dramatically his life had changed in recent days. Since Kathleen's money was well invested, with income from several properties in New York and a restaurant in the Maldives, she could afford to stay away from work for a while and enjoy life with her new husband. She continued to trade, but no longer spent entire days at the computer. Andrew was a little embarrassed that Kathleen made more money than him. He did not want to be dependent on her and could not get rid of the idea that a man should provide for his family. Thanks to the connections of his friend Kathleen, he got a job at a large law firm, where he almost immediately became a partner. Their new life was full of harmony. A luxurious apartment overlooking Manhattan, breakfasts prepared by Andrew in the morning, and flowers that he brought in the evenings. Their intimate life remained bright and rich, and their relationship was ideal. Kathleen got ready for the gym while Andrew went to work. Despite the fact that her main advantage was her perfect silicone breasts, she diligently maintained her body in excellent shape, not wanting to lose her flat stomach and slender legs. They both visited the gym located in their house because Andrew also needed to keep his muscles in shape. However, Andrew mostly trained in the evenings and on weekends, and Kathleen trained during the day on weekdays, as she didn't like having too many people in the gym. That morning, she made another lucrative deal, went into a cafe, and went to training. While doing her usual butt exercises, she noticed two girls on the treadmills. More precisely, she paid attention to their buttocks. The tight leggings showed them off, and they looked so big that they seemed to make it difficult to balance. Perhaps that's why the girls didn't even run, but simply walked along the path at a normal pace. Obviously, such forms could not be natural. Maybe it was fat accumulation, or maybe implants. Kathleen didn't know for sure, but she was sure that it was impossible to naturally maintain such a thin waist and at the same time acquire such large buttocks. Kathleen continued her workout, thinking that the neat and firm buttocks she strives for will always look more beautiful than such massive ones, and even those with thick legs. After finishing her exercises, she headed to the spa to relax by the pool and drink a smoothie. There was almost no one in the spa area. Kathleen ordered a smoothie, settled down on a lounge chair, and started reading the news. After all, if you play in the stock market, you should always be aware of world events. Suddenly, she heard a voice behind her. "Hey, hi, great breasts. Which doctor did them for you?" Kathleen turned around and saw the two girls she had seen on the treadmills in the gym. Now she could see their bodies much better. Obviously, their forms were their main pride. "I'm Naomi, and this is my friend Bethany. I haven't seen you here before. What is your name?" Each girl was holding a large portion of dessert and a milkshake, which indicated a lack of strictness in their diet. Naomi was slightly shorter than her friend, a little over 5 feet tall, but she was just as curvy. She had long dark hair that went down to her chest. Incredibly plump lips and large eyelashes stood out on her face. She was wearing a green swimsuit, which was clearly too small for her. Huge breasts, slightly smaller than Kathleen's breasts, were tightly compressed by the thin fabric of the bikini. Kathleen noticed a belly button piercing on her flat stomach. Bethany was almost 6 feet tall and had an absolutely perfect hourglass figure. Even without seeing her from behind, it was clear how big her butt was. Bethany was as blonde as Kathleen and had a face that could advertise plastic surgery, a perfectly trimmed nose, pouty lips, and a Botox-frosted expression. Her breasts were almost twice the size of Kathleen's and were also tightly clad in a bright scarlet bikini. "Hello, girls. I recently moved here. My name is Kathleen. Who made your breasts?" "Very good job. Believe me, I understand this," Bethany asked. "I had augmentation done with saline implants at Dr. Anderson's clinic here in New York." "Come on, I did it with him too, friend. He's just a genius. Made me a real goddess," Bethany exclaimed. The girls continued to have a nice discussion about plastic surgery, and Kathleen learned a lot about herself in this area. She suddenly realized that she had never had real friends. Kathleen always put her career goals first and did not have close friends. She also liked the feeling of being intellectually superior to these girls, since their careers were over before they even began. She found out that Naomi's husband is a famous rapper who is currently on tour, and Bethany is married to a top manager of one of the largest banks. Both girls led the life of housewives, went to restaurants and clubs, and regularly made purchases and beauty treatments at the expense of their wealthy husbands. Kathleen was surprised how they didn't get bored doing nothing, because every person should have a goal in life. Mostly the girls discussed show business, and Kathleen was not very good at it. Sometimes Naomi and Bethany laughed, but in a good way, when they learned that Kathleen didn't know any internet superstars or reality TV celebrities. Kathleen found herself in a completely new society and absorbed with interest absolutely useless information. Leaving the spa, the girls exchanged Instagram accounts and agreed to meet in the evening at Naomi's apartment to watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians together. Kathleen had never watched such a stupid reality show, but Bethany said it was very interesting and funny, and Kathleen believed her. When Kathleen returned home, she discovered that she had been in the spa for about 3 hours. She decided not to cook dinner for Andrew, who was soon to return from work, but to have dinner at a restaurant and devote her free time to viewing the Instagram accounts of her new girlfriends. She rarely posted anything on her account other than travel photos. Her subscribers were mostly friends and acquaintances, and there were about 500 of them. But when she logged into Naomi's account, her surprise knew no bounds. Naomi had 500,000 subscribers and a huge number of photos, mostly candid. Scrolling through the feed, Kathleen stopped at a video of Naomi shaking her almost naked butt in front of the camera, and then a photo of her in transparent lingerie. Kathleen exclaimed out loud, both embarrassed by such frankness and admired by her courage. According to Naomi, there were no implants in her buttocks, and Kathleen was convinced of this. Although implants look sexy, they are also very unnatural. A girl with implants can't even shake her butt normally. Naomi did it perfectly, her massive buttocks moving up and down like one big mass. Despite Kathleen's love for neat, firm buttocks, she had to admit that Naomi's thick ass looked sexy. Studying her new friend's stories, Kathleen was surprised by her lifestyle. She thought she was living a full life, but her experiences were nothing compared to Naomi's. Many stories from different countries with names: Vegas, Dubai, Maldives, New York, Europe, Miami, Hawaii, and that was only half the list. The publications, of course, were almost the same, either Naomi's fat butt on the beach or videos from parties in luxurious outfits, where she drank cocktails and vodka. After watching her stories today, Kathleen was surprised again. Naomi took pictures of almost everything: herself in sexy lingerie in front of the mirror in the morning, on the treadmill in the gym, and, just a minute, she even posted a photo from the pool. Kathleen didn't even notice when she did it. In a photo posted just a minute ago, Naomi and Bethany showed off their breasts to the camera. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Andrew returned from work. "Hello, how was your workday?" "Very tired and hungry, dear. I hope you prepared me a delicious dinner." I spent a little more time in the hall than planned and didn't have time to prepare anything. Maybe we can go to a restaurant. So be it, let's go, Andrew calmly answered. They sat down at a table in a restaurant not far from home. It wasn't cheap, but the couple could afford it. In the new job Kathleen provided, Andrew earned several times more than in his previous one. He showed confidence in the courtroom and won case after case. The company's profits grew, there were more clients, and the senior partners were very pleased with him. He talked about his legal proceedings, and Kathleen listened to him with interest. After Naomi and Bethany's stories about some scandals in show business, it was much more interesting to listen to Andrew. In turn, Kathleen talked about her new friends and mentioned that she was going to Naomi's in the evening. Andrew grinned, joked so that she wouldn't cheat on him, and reminded her of daily sex and willingness to satisfy her in the evening. After dinner together, Kathleen went to Naomi, who lived several floors above. The door was opened by a joyful Bethany. She was also invited. Kathleen walked into the spacious living room, where Naomi was lying on the sofa in front of the TV. The girls are already prepared to watch one of their favorite shows, Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Naomi immediately kindly offered Kathleen wine, and she agreed. At first, Kathleen was bored, but after a few drinks, she didn't notice how engrossed she was in the show. While watching, they discussed the celebrities' outfits and their figures. At the end, Kathleen admitted that the show was really interesting, and Bethany was right. The girls drank almost a bottle of wine and were frankly drunk. Suddenly, Naomi asked, Katie, why didn't you get a Brazilian butt lift? Don't you want to have a big, sexy butt like me? I didn't even think about it. You know, I like to be like Kendall Jenner from the show, with such a figure, she answered carefully so as not to offend Naomi. Kendall, of course, is good, but have you seen Kim's ass? Every man dreams of this. Don't forget that every man is a predator, and a predator needs juicy meat, not skinny bones. Sorry, friend, Bethany replied. Katie, touch my fat ass, and you'll immediately understand that you need one just like it, Naomi said, got up from the couch, walked up to Kathleen, took her hand and put it on her buttock. Kathleen's palm resisted reflexively at first, but then, under the influence of alcohol, she squeezed her friend's massive butt. It was soft, but at the same time elastic. The main thing is no implants like that bitch Beth. You just need some fat and Dr. Anderson will fill your ass, Naomi added. Bethany was already used to such jokes and simply rolled her eyes. Kathleen laughed in response and, out of politeness, promised to think about the proposal. The girls said goodbye, kissed, and went to their apartments. Naomi had already made plans to meet the next day at the spa, and then invited Kathleen to go with her and Bethany to a beauty salon they visited weekly for manicures, pedicures, and beauty treatments. Kathleen, slightly swaying from the drink, entered her apartment and immediately went to the bedroom, where Andrew was waiting for her. He was busy reading work papers when she pounced on him. I see you had a good time, he said, catching the scent of alcohol on his wife. We'll talk later, honey, but now I need sex with you. Kathleen didn't even notice how one day of communication with Naomi and Bethany changed her style of conversation. They made love. Andrew was about to turn off the light when Kathleen startled him with a question. Do you like my butt? She lay next to him and looked straight into his eyes. Andrew chose the safest answer and simply said, Of course, honey, she's the sexiest. Would you like it to become a little bigger? Kat, what's wrong with you? Your butt is perfect. Sincerely not understanding the question, he answered, wanting to end the conversation and fall asleep. I was wondering if I should get a Brazilian butt lift. Add a little volume. What do you think? Andrew was so exhausted from sex that he simply said, Darling, I will love you in any form, even if you weigh 200 pounds. It's your body and your decision. The main thing is don't make your breasts smaller, my love. With these words, he finally fell asleep. Andrew respected any decision Kathleen made, but could not take into account that she made it under the influence of her new friends. Kathleen decided to scroll through Naomi and Bethany's Instagram before going to bed, and after seeing their huge, delicious buttocks, She finally decided that she wanted to enlarge hers. In the morning, she will call the doctor and make an appointment for a consultation. The next day, Kathleen woke up around noon. Andrew had been at work for a long time. Her head was still a little noisy from yesterday, so Kathleen headed to the shower. In the bathroom, she stood in front of the mirror and looked at her naked body. Turning sideways, she wondered what a big butt would look like on her. Although she loved her elegant, thin legs, she also wanted a butt that would hypnotize any man. Kathleen came out of the bathroom and heard the phone ringing. It was Bethany. Hello, friend. Naomi and I are going to a restaurant for breakfast and then to the spa. Are you with us? Hi, to be honest, I would like to go later and do a little work now. Maybe we can meet in 3 hours. Oh, come on, what kind of work? Don't you have enough money? Get ready, we are already coming for you. Kathleen didn't like having her plans for the day ruined, but she remembered Bethany's words. Indeed, her money continues to perform in the stock market because it is safely invested. You can allow yourself a little rest to make better friends with girls. She put on a white top without a bra and short summer shorts, packed her fitness bag, and left the apartment. Naomi and Bethany were already waiting for her. They were dressed in the same low-cut sets and tight leggings. The only difference was the color. Bethany's was white and Naomi's was black. Kathleen immediately praised their outfits, and the girls said that she also wanted such a set. She noted that even if you have extra weight on your butt and legs, wearing tight leggings will only make you look sexy. The friends sat down at a table in a restaurant and began to choose what to order for breakfast. Kathleen decided not to procrastinate and immediately announce her decision. By the way, I've thought about your suggestion, Naomi, and I think I really should enlarge my butt a little. Damn it, baby, I knew you were a smart girl and not one of those who is happy to remain skinny. You should call Dr. Anderson today, but one thing is for sure. For the surgery to be successful, you'll need to gain some extra fat, so forget your diet, baby. I had to gain 10 pounds before my first surgery, but I got through it quickly. Thanks to pizza and delicious desserts. Naomi laughed. Kathleen, of course, did not like the fact that she would have to gain weight, but she understood that it was necessary. She called Dr. Anderson and asked for a consultation as soon as possible. Luckily, there was an opening in his schedule for the next day. She elaborated on how much extra weight she would need to gain, saying she is 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighs 90 pounds. The doctor said he would tell her the exact number at the checkup, but she would probably need to increase her weight by 20 pounds. She was not ready for such a figure and at first wanted to refuse the operation, but then Bethany intervened. Oh, my best friend, you can't give up on your dreams. Yes, you will be imperfect for a couple of weeks, but then you will enjoy the fact that every man passing by will look back at this masterpiece. Your husband will be happy to grab you for it. Kathleen liked Bethany's words and smiled. In that case, I will start growing reserves today, Kathleen said and started flipping through the menu. The girls appreciated her approach. They ordered a large pizza, croissants, and dessert for everyone. How will we train after such a breakfast? Kathleen asked. Don't worry, honey. With this attitude, you will only grow, Naomi winked. Honey, forget about working out for a while. You want to gain weight, not lose it, Naomi said. After such a hearty lunch, Kathleen felt like she wouldn't be able to get up. She had been on a diet almost all her life, and her stomach was not ready for such a volume of food. However, Beth assured her that she would soon get used to it. The friends went to the spa, ordered a non-alcoholic cocktail, and lay down on the sun loungers. Kathleen noticed that Naomi's butt took up almost the entire width of the lounge chair, and even hung over the sides a little, while her lounge chair could have fit another person. She thought with excitement that soon her butt would also become just as appetizing. Sitting by the pool, Naomi suggested taking a photo together to post on Instagram. Kathleen said that she never posted explicit photos because many business partners follow her. Beth grinned and said, Katie, don't be boring. Let's create a new account for you. My subscribers will quickly come to you after seeing your hot body. Believe me, there is nothing nicer than comments from fans admiring your figure, and your friends won't see it. Kathleen liked the idea, although she was still shy about showing her body. She created an account and Naomi quickly came up with a nickname for her. Sexicity or Caddix Love, she suggested. Kathleen liked the second option because it included her name and size XL, hinting at her beautiful curves. Of course, her 900cc breasts did not fit into size XL, but she settled on this option. The girls took a photo in swimsuits, emphasizing their advantages, and pouted their lips. Kathleen thought this was funny. She also posted this photo on Beth's recommendation with the caption, "Hot Girls." Naomi said that you need to constantly post something to please your subscribers. And if I'm having a normal day, what should I shoot? Kathleen asked in disbelief. Naomi and Bethany laughed. Whatever, honey, as long as everyone sees how hot you are. Kathleen made the first publication, posting a photo of herself from the sea in a swimsuit, as well as a photo of them together with Naomi and Bethany, tagging their accounts. The number of subscribers began to grow instantly. The friends continued to lie by the pool. Naomi and Bethany flipped through the pages of the online store and chose new clothes. Kathleen was a little bored, but she didn't show it. The girls ate a delicious dessert and were about to leave when Kathleen's phone rang. It was Andrew. "Hello, dear. Are you home?" "Hello, I'm working out at the gym. What's happened?" "The boss said that we urgently need to go to Dallas, meet with the client, and defend his interests in court. And since I have been showing better results lately, this case was assigned to me. I'm going home now, and I have a flight in the evening. I'll be home soon, dear. Congratulations. I'm glad they trust you." Kathleen said that she needed to go home to see her husband off on a business trip, and her friends were also getting ready to leave. She decided that since Andrew was leaving, she should invite her friends to visit her as a gesture of politeness. She prepared dinner for Andrew and congratulated him on such a responsible task. She said she finally decided to get a Brazilian butt lift and now needs to gain some weight. Andrew again said that he respected her decision, and if she felt it was necessary, then why not? "The main thing is don't crush me," he joked. Kathleen was delighted with her husband's support in this decision and wanted to thank him. "Are you going away for a long time?" "I don't know. I think no more than a week. I'll break them at the first court hearing." "You are the best lawyer in the world, and the best lawyer needs the best sex," Kathleen whispered, kissing her husband's ear. "I'm in a hurry. The plane is in 2 hours, sorry." He put on his trousers, took a small suitcase, and went to the airport. Kathleen hugged him goodbye and told him not to miss her. Closing the door, she went to the bathroom to wash herself. Coming out of the bathroom in just her bra, she stopped in front of a large mirror, looked at herself, and remembered Naomi's advice about Instagram. Kathleen took a photo in her underwear, seductively covering her breasts, and posted it on her story. She noticed that after Naomi and Bethany tagged her account, she already had more than 5,000 subscribers. Then the doorbell rang. Kathleen put on her robe and opened it to her friends. Naomi immediately handed her 2 bottles of wine and told her to put them in the refrigerator, and also said that the courier would call soon and bring rolls and pizza. Kathleen led them into the living room and showed them the apartment. The friends spent the entire evening lying on the couch, watching videos and laughing. When Beth brought food from the courier, Kathleen was surprised how she could eat so much, but at the same time she felt a strong feeling of hunger and a desire to eat something sweet. After eating 2 portions of rolls and 2 pizzas, which would be enough for 5, the girls moved on to dessert. Kathleen had never enjoyed the taste of food so much. Naomi said it's always like this after drinking. The friends said goodbye closer to midnight, agreeing to go together to see a doctor the next day. Kathleen woke up around noon and remembered that her consultation with a plastic surgeon was scheduled in 2 hours. She decided to post a photo from her bed with a caption, "Good morning, today I'm waiting for a consultation on plastic surgery," and added an emoticon. After yesterday's hearty dinner, Kathleen wasn't too hungry, but she remembered that she needed to gain weight for surgery, and ate a large portion of bacon and eggs, finishing it off with dessert. At the entrance to the house, she met with her friends. Naomi called a taxi, and everyone went to their favorite plastic surgeon. Dr. Anderson, as always friendly to his regular clients, was glad to see Kathleen again after a long break. He examined her and determined that for the operation to be successful, she needed to gain another 20 pounds of weight, and also prescribed pills to slow down her metabolism and promote weight gain. He also suggested other plastic surgeries to Kathleen, such as lip augmentation, but she said it would be unnecessary. But Naomi, on the contrary, signed up for lip augmentation with collagen in 10 days. After the consultation, the friends went to the beauty salon to update their hairstyles and get a new manicure. Kathleen loved her new nails and improved hair and makeup. "You look amazing, friend. This manicure really suits you. Let's go home, change clothes, and go hang out," Naomi suggested. "Why not? But where are we going?" Kathleen asked. "Of course, to the club. I'll book a VIP table now. It'll be fun. It's Friday." Naomi responded enthusiastically. Kathleen agreed, and the friends got into a taxi. She rarely went to clubs, and the last time she really had fun was during her student days, but she was eager to experience the nightlife again, this time in a more expensive place. Kathleen spent a long time choosing what to wear and settled on a black tight-fitting jumpsuit from Tom Ford with a low cut in the middle. Her round artificial breasts were half open and looked very seductive. Kathleen also carried a chic Versace sequin handbag and accessorized with jewelry, finishing off her look with sky-high heels. Before leaving, she took a photo in the mirror and posted it with the caption, "This will be an interesting night." Her friends were also in their best clothes. Beth was wearing the shortest dress Kathleen had ever seen. The silver dress hugged her hourglass figure and ended so high that her panties were visible. She was holding a decorative handbag in her hands, and on her feet were golden stilettos. She seemed to shine, drawing eyes to her cleavage and butt. Naomi looked no worse. She wore a black dress slightly longer than Beth's, with Chanel logos on it. It was mesh, and the fabric only covered the areas of the chest and between the legs. Around her neck hung a large diamond pendant with the inscription Barbie. Hot girls got into a taxi and headed to a nightclub. They were traveling in a minivan, since in a regular car 3 friends would not fit in the back seats. Naomi and Bethany's butts took up the space of 1.5 people. The girls got out of the car and headed towards the entrance to the club. Many people looked at them with admiration and desire. In their best outfits, Naomi, Bethany, and Kathleen looked like the most expensive and luxurious girls living their best life thanks to their attractiveness. Walking behind her friends, Kathleen admired the way their butts swayed. Now she considered such an outstanding figure not an absurd joke of nature, but a real work of art that hypnotizes from the first seconds. The security guard escorted the girlfriends to a VIP table located on the second floor of a luxurious establishment. Kathleen noticed that around her there were mostly girls with surgically enhanced forms, similar to her friends, who were having fun with rich men in expensive suits or were looking for such, dancing seductively and showing off their charms. Naomi immediately called the waiter and placed an order. Soon the waiter brought the girls dinner and cocktails. "Let's start with this," Beth said and raised a toast. "Here's to the hottest girls in this club." When the second cocktail was over, Kathleen suggested they go dancing, but Naomi asked to wait a little, and it soon became clear why. Kathleen saw their waiter carrying a bottle of vodka in an ice bucket and several energy drinks. Naomi quickly poured vodka into the glasses. The girls took a shot each and went to the dance floor. At Beth's request, Kathleen filmed her friends dancing in the center of the dance floor, shaking their butts in front of the camera. Naomi also filmed Kathleen moving her body and touching her breasts while under the influence of alcohol. All this, of course, instantly appeared on Instagram. Another shot of vodka was the last thing Kathleen remembered. She woke up with a severe headache and nausea and immediately realized that she was not in her apartment. She was afraid that, being drunk, she had cheated on her husband at night. But at that moment, Naomi entered the room with a glass of water and aspirin. "You rocked yesterday, beauty. Here, drink it, and you will feel better. You got so drunk that I decided to take you to my place. Don't worry, nothing bad happened. Let's have a lazy day today." Kathleen took the pill and washed it down with water. She picked up her phone and checked Instagram. She was stunned to see that her account already had 40,000 followers. After looking through her stories, she was ready to burn with shame. There were several videos of her dancing, and even a video of her kissing Naomi. She showed this to her friend in horror, to which she replied, "Baby, you suggested it yourself and asked Beth to make a video. Relax, there's nothing wrong with that. It was really hot. I ordered some food. Let's relax in front of the TV and watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Beth will be here soon." Kathleen liked the idea because she didn't even have the strength to get out of bed. By evening, they had watched most of the season and finished the rolls that Naomi had ordered. Kathleen said she can't wait for the next season of the show. She couldn't even imagine that such a stupid show could be so interesting. By nightfall, Beth went to her room to spend time with her husband, and Kathleen decided to stay with Naomi after all. Her rapper husband was on tour in America. The week of Andrew's absence flew by. Kathleen continued to have fun with her friends. They spent time at the spa, walked around the city in the evenings, and lay in Naomi's apartment watching reality TV. One morning, Kathleen woke up in her apartment and saw a message from Andrew. It said, "Darling, I miss you very much. Sorry, but the other side has filed an appeal of the court's decision, and I'll have to stay in Dallas to learn more about the case. I hope to be back in a week. Kiss." Kathleen was very upset that her husband had been away for so long. She was bored, and most importantly, she was hungry for sex. She sent him a naked photo of herself with a caption about how much she missed him, and went to the bathroom for her morning shower. After completing the procedures, she stepped on the scale. They showed the coveted figure 110 pounds. Kathleen's joy knew no bounds because she realized that she was ready for the operation. Dr. Anderson's pills helped her significantly. She came out of the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror, and the joy evaporated. The perfect abs disappeared, a small protruding belly appeared, and the legs no longer looked so graceful. The skin on the buttocks became looser due to lack of exercise, and cellulite appeared. However, Kathleen found a good angle that hid the flaws, took a photo, and posted it on her Instagram story. She then called Naomi and told her the news. Beth went on vacation with her husband to the Seychelles, so the friends were left alone. When Naomi heard that Katie was ready for surgery, she was delighted and promised to make an appointment with the surgeon as soon as possible. That same evening, the friends lay on the sofa in Naomi's apartment, drinking wine and watching a reality show. Suddenly, Kathleen asked a question. "Listen, I have a problem. I want to consult with you." "Of course, dear Cher, I'll help. Your husband often goes on tour, sometimes for several months. How do you cope with the lack of sex? My Andrew has only been on a business trip for a week, and I can't bear it anymore." "You've come to the right place. Now I'll show you something." Naomi pulled out a shoebox from the top shelf and showed the contents. "Choose. It's not the same, of course, but it's fun," she said. The long-awaited day has arrived for Kathleen. The friends stood in the office in front of Dr. Anderson. He immediately praised Kathleen's results and said that she gained even more fat than she needed. Kathleen was upset about this, but Naomi explained to her that the doctor was a real magician and would transfer all the fat from her body to her butt. According to the surgeon, recovery should take about a week, during which time it will be impossible to sit. He asked again if Kathleen wanted to add collagen to her lips and also get some Botox injections in her face. According to him, this will help maintain youth and beauty of the face. Kathleen again refused, believing that excessive fullness of the lips was not so beautiful, but Naomi intervened in the conversation. "Darling, they won't refuse this. My husband loves my lips and has repeatedly asked me to make them even fuller. You're already over 30. You don't want to grow old. Do you really need those wrinkles on your face? There's nothing wrong with Botox and fillers. Get rid of the stereotypes in your head. Kathleen was impressed by her words and agreed to a small lip injection and Botox treatment. She decided to do this before butt surgery and went with Naomi to another office. The injections were successful and Dr. Anderson was ready to operate on Kathleen. She wasn't too worried because she had already been under the surgeon's knife for breast augmentation. Naomi wished her luck and Kathleen went to the operating room. The operation was successful and Naomi picked Kathleen up from the hospital the next day. The result was not yet visible because according to Dr. Anderson's recommendation, it was necessary to constantly wear compression garments, but it was difficult not to notice the difference in volume. Kathleen looked in the mirror and remembered her old body, which looked like a thin thread. She now saw her perfect curves in the reflection and her flat stomach was back, although it was still bruised from the surgery. Naomi kindly invited Kathleen to stay with her for a few days, since she herself was familiar with all the intricacies of rehabilitation. She had already prepared the necessary equipment so that Kathleen could sit for several days without harm to her body. Kathleen had a lot of free time because she was in bed most of the day. Every day Andrew called her and asked how she was doing because he was very worried. He said he would be back from Dallas in a few days. Kathleen intended to use her free time to get some work done, asking Naomi to bring her laptop from her apartment. The friend laughed, but complied with the request. On the third day after the operation, Kathleen no longer felt constant pain and decided to devote the day to work while Naomi did cosmetic procedures and was in the solarium. She took out her laptop, checked her stock investments, and began researching the market for further investments. However, Kathleen could not concentrate and was constantly distracted by messages from Instagram followers or new posts from friends. She made sure that the money was working well, put away her laptop, and decided that the best solution was to spend the day with her subscribers, whose number had already exceeded 100,000. She posted the story with the caption, "I'm at home all day recovering from surgery, ask your questions," and added an emoji. Mostly they asked her about her marital status and praised her for her appearance, but there were also more interesting questions. She said she had a Brazilian butt lift and also had a lip augmentation. She was also asked if she was planning any more plastic surgery, to which she replied, "Not yet, but never say never." Naomi returned from the salon in the evening, took off her clothes, put on a Versace robe, and approached Kathleen. "I see that today's work was a success," she giggled, showing Kathleen the phone with her Instastory, of which about 20 were published. "I was just communicating with subscribers, that's enough. Let's watch TV," Kathleen replied. Naomi turned on the reality show, went into another room, and returned with a bong to relax a little after a hard day. The girls enjoyed watching the show and fell asleep. Andrew arrived the next day. Kathleen returned to her apartment and waited for him there. She was disappointed that, due to physical activity restrictions, she would not be able to have sex for several more days. When he entered, Kathleen was lying on the bed in the bedroom, wearing a robe and preparing a pillow for her butt. "Darling, how I missed you. How are you feeling?" "Baby, I feel better than ever, and I'll feel even better once this stupid butt bandage comes off. I'm glad everything went well. I'm sorry I wasn't there at the right time." Andrew lay down next to her and took her hand. "This process has exhausted me. We provided all the evidence and documents, but the judge was dragging his feet. He must be." Andrew's story was interrupted when Kathleen put her finger to his mouth and whispered, "SHH, let's not talk about work, honey. Let me please you." Andrew was surprised by his wife's reaction because she usually listened with interest to stories about his work. Afterwards, Andrew lay next to Kathleen and told her about the trial in Dallas and future career prospects. He didn't notice, but his wife was hardly listening. Kathleen's mind was filled with thoughts of how many days until restrictions were lifted for her to finally be able to go shopping, and the fact that she hadn't posted anything on Instagram that evening. From the whole story, she only remembered that the boss was very pleased with Andrew's work and raised his monthly salary to $70,000, and also promised to pay 10% of the company's profits, which was about $1 million a year. Kathleen congratulated him and said that the more money, the better. Sometime later, the long-awaited day came for a visit to Dr. Anderson for complete removal of the bandage and a checkup. Kathleen woke up around noon and immediately posted a photo in the mirror on Instagram with the caption, "Last day with this stupid thing. Today I finally see my butt in all its glory, haha." Andrew was away from home for a long time, and overall they saw Kathleen less often due to his workload. He left in the morning and returned late at night, but it cannot be said that Kathleen was very upset about this. She spent time with Naomi and Bethany, and when they went for a walk or to the beauty salon, she would lie on the bed, watch TV, or scroll through social media. They arrived at the clinic. Dr. Anderson examined her and said, "Kathleen, your body has shown amazing results. Everything has completely healed. All the fat remains on the buttocks, evenly distributed over the thighs. Besides, I see that after Botox and fillers, you also started to look better." Indeed, Kathleen's plump lips looked amazing, and her face looked much younger thanks to Botox injections. Her cheeks became larger, and her expression hardened slightly. Finally, Dr. Anderson removed her compression garment and allowed Katie to look in the mirror. She looked in the mirror, and her jaw dropped. Her butt was huge. She was massive and protruding, and yet she had no cellulite or wrinkles. Her waist was outrageously thin and fell sharply into a thick, wide butt. "Damn, my butt is even bigger than Kim Kardashian from my favorite show," she screamed. "Yes, the fact is that we managed to do even more than planned, and it's your credit, Kathleen, because you gained so much fat that it filled your butt." Kathleen walked around the room and felt her butt sway with every step. She was happy. Luckily, Naomi offered Kathleen her leggings because Kathleen's butt wouldn't fit into her old jeans. The girlfriends immediately went for beauty treatments because Kathleen decided to give Andrew the best sex of his life in the evening. After 2 hours of procedures, Katie stood in front of the mirror, enjoying herself. She was given heavy makeup, her eyelashes were enlarged, her lips were painted with a bright gloss that added volume, and her eyebrows were worked on. Her hair was long and reached almost to her huge butt. After visiting the solarium, her skin became much darker and acquired a bronze tint. She immediately posted the photo on Instagram and went home. When Katie returned home, Andrew was still at work. She spent a lot of time choosing the outfit in which she wanted to meet her husband. Standing in the middle of the large walk-in closet, Kathleen mindlessly tried to put on sexy lace panties, but none of the pair would fit her new thick butt. The latter even tore when she tried to aggressively push her butt into them. Finally, Kathleen pulled out the most revealing set of lingerie from her extensive collection. It was a bright red thong that had a thin string in the back and a small triangle in the front that barely covered the gap. The bra, while hardly what it was called, was made of the same red mesh that Katie's fake breasts were contained in and did not hide anything at all. She also wore brightly colored stockings to complete the look, and sandals with heels to show off her new pedicure too. Katie walked around the apartment in this image and stopped at the mirror. "Damn, I'm so hot. My new fat butt is the most beautiful thing in the world. I want to look into his eyes when he sees this piece of art for the first time," she said out loud. Katie stood with her back to the mirror and shook her butt. "Damn, how stupid I was, wasting time in the gym to improve my figure. For so many years I walked around with a flat and small butt instead of having surgery and getting that perfect butt. Thank God I decided to go to the spa that day at the gym and met Naomi and Bethany. Otherwise I would have had a boring and flat butt," she thought. Katie languished, waiting for Andrew and scrolling through her Instagram feed. Half an hour later, her patience ran out, and she sent him a message. "Baby, when will you come back? I have a surprise for you, hee hee." After 10 minutes of Andrew not responding, she sent him a photo of her breasts in sheer panties, pouting her lips, and captioned it, "Hurry up, or I'll be offended." Andrew called her back 2 minutes later, but there was only irritation in his voice. "Kathleen, I have a meeting with the boss. Why the hell are you distracting me?" "I'll be there in an hour," Andrew replied and hung up. Kathleen didn't understand why he was reacting this way. She was angry at her husband for choosing to stay at work instead of having sex with her. Despite her bad mood, she quickly found something to do for the next hour. Katie stood in the dressing room in front of the mirror and tried on the clothes she wore before her Brazilian butt lift. She loved seeing how her old jeans, which a month ago had accentuated her shapely legs, now didn't even go past her mid-thighs because they were wider too. After trying out her favorite short skirt, Katie enjoyed the reflection in the mirror. The skirt didn't even cover half of her butt, although it fit perfectly at her waist. She decided to stay in this skirt and meet her husband in it. Although she was angry at his rudeness, the desire for sex took over. Andrew returned from work tired and hungry. Entering the apartment, he immediately heard the sounds of rap and was surprised. It's strange, Katie hasn't listened to this kind of music before. She always loved jazz, he thought. Indeed, Katie used to love calm music, with which she could take a break from trading the stock market and be alone with her thoughts. But recently, under the influence of Naomi and Bethany, she fell in love with rap. Her friends showed her popular videos while they were drinking together, and without even realizing it, Katie became a huge fan of Cardi B and Nicki Minaj in a matter of days. Novia Katie liked the music because it was loud and the lyrics were funny and didn't make you think about difficult topics. Plus, it was so cool to shake your booty to the rocking beat. Often, when Andrew was at work, Katie would dance in front of the mirror to loud rap music, imagining that she was starring in a Nicki Minaj or Cardi B video. Previously, she did not have enough curves to look like the girls from the video, but with her new butt this became possible. Andrew went into the bedroom to change clothes, but was stunned by what was waiting for him there. Kathleen was already waiting for him, dressed in skimpy panties and high-heeled sandals. Finally, my business husband is back, ready to feel my new butt. Andrew responded negatively and at first wanted to have a serious conversation with Kathleen about her behavior lately, but when he saw that butt, he was speechless. I missed you so much, dear. With these words, Katie kissed her husband. He lost control. It seemed that if you asked him, he wouldn't even remember his name. Kathleen suddenly broke the kiss and walked towards the bed. Andrew stood in amazement, enjoying the sound of his heels touching the hardwood floor and watching his wife's renewed butt jiggle with every step. She had the widest hips he had ever seen, and her ass looked amazing. With every movement, swaying and swaying, he realized what a work of art it was and how boring the average butt was in comparison. The image of Kathleen's old butt, although firm and trim and perfectly round, seemed insignificant in his mind compared to that magnificent fat ass. Forgetting everything except Kathleen's magnificent body, Andrew rushed to her bed. They made love. As time passed, Kathleen's life gradually changed. Her lifestyle increasingly resembled that of a classic trophy wife, and her activity on social media led to her Instagram following surpassing 1 million. She found joy in choosing fashionable outfits, photo shoots, and meeting with friends Naomi and Bethany. Frequent visits to the solarium gave her skin a beautiful bronze tint, and her new figure aroused the admiration of others. Kathleen spent a lot of time in the company of her friends. Together, they organized shopping marathons, discussed the latest fashion trends, and made plans for parties. This easy, carefree life, full of fun and attention, became her new normal. Her rise in popularity on social media only boosted her confidence. However, the changes in her lifestyle were also reflected in her appearance. She gained a little weight, and this gave her figure even more expressiveness, especially in the hips and waist. Andrew, completely immersed in his career, did not notice significant changes in his wife's life. He became a partner in one of the leading law firms in New York, which brought him enormous income. Success at work took up almost all of his time, and this seemed to suit Kathleen quite well. She handed over control of her financial assets to her husband, explaining that she wanted to focus on maintaining home comfort and her own interests. Despite his busy everyday life, Andrew found time to spend evenings together with his wife. They went to expensive restaurants and enjoyed socializing, although Kathleen's thoughts were sometimes elsewhere. She often made plans to meet with friends or thought about what image to choose for the next photo shoot. Their interactions became more formal, but Andrew was glad that Kathleen was happy and the center of attention. One evening, during a romantic dinner, Andrew told Kathleen about his career successes and future plans. Kathleen listened to him with a smile, occasionally glancing at the phone screen, where her subscribers left enthusiastic comments. After dinner, she suggested discussing the details of the upcoming trip with her friends, which made Andrew smile slightly. He could see how much she liked her new life. The next day, Kathleen went shopping with Naomi and Bethany. They spent several hours at the mall, choosing stylish outfits and having fun discussing the latest fashion trends. Kathleen was especially proud of her new white door jumpsuit, which perfectly accentuated her figure. The day ended with a visit to the beauty salon, where the friends finally prepared for the evening meeting. Later, during a party at a nightclub, Kathleen was the center of attention. Her bright appearance and confidence attracted the gaze of others. Men and women watched her dances with interest, and her friends supported her in this. Kathleen enjoyed every moment, feeling alive and wanted. Over the course of the evening, she posted several pictures and videos on Instagram, which instantly racked up thousands of likes. Returning home, Kathleen thought about how her life had changed recently. She enjoyed being the center of attention and looked forward to new opportunities to express herself. Her world became brighter, richer, and more interesting, and she was sure that many more amazing events awaited her ahead. Late one evening, Andrew sat in his office, poring over the details of a complex court case. Suddenly, the door opened and Kathleen walked in, dressed in a stylish dressing gown. She always loved to demonstrate her impeccability. "Are you so busy that you completely forgot about your wife?" she said with a slight smile, approaching the table. "Katie, I'm really busy," he replied, taking off his glasses and giving her a tired look. "I just want to stay close for a little while," she added softly, sitting down next to him. Andrew was momentarily distracted, but soon became immersed in the documents again. Kathleen, noticing that her husband was engrossed in his work, decided that the best solution would be to leave him alone. "Okay, I'll wait for you in the bedroom." With these words, she went to her room. Andrew tried to concentrate on the matter at hand, but thoughts of Kathleen haunted him. He put the papers aside, deciding that he deserved a little respite. Leaving the office, he went to his wife to pay attention to her. Andrew looked with confusion at his wife Katie, who sat opposite him, her face beaming with joy and confidence. She seemed to be full of energy, which overwhelmed her and was transmitted to him. Their eyes met, and Andrew felt a tension arise between them, as if an invisible connection had come to life. Katie boldly pulled him closer, gently wrapping her arms around his neck. She looked at him with a mischievous twinkle in her eyes and smiled, as if she knew all his thoughts. Andrew felt his heart beat faster. "You just can't imagine how much I love you," she whispered with a slight smile, touching his face with her warm hands. He couldn't help but laugh, her infectious energy literally filling everything around him. Instead of words, he hugged her tightly, enjoying the moment of closeness. Everything that was happening now was so sincere that there was no room for doubts or fears in his head. Andrew accidentally mentioned her curves. "Dear, do you really want me to become even better? But, your queen needs money for an operation to look even more spectacular. And then she will need a new wardrobe. My updated shape will definitely not fit into my old clothes," Katie said flirtatiously. "That sounds cool. Money's no problem. Take my card and do whatever you want," Andrew replied before hanging up. Katie was preparing for her next appointment with Dr. Anderson. She has already shared her plans with her Instagram followers, and the response has been overwhelmingly enthusiastic. Katie decided to increase her breast volume to 1,700 cc and additionally make figure correction, redistributing accumulated fat to improve body contours. She liked the idea of improving without grueling training. The recovery process after the operation took about a month, and during this time she enjoyed relaxing at home, watching TV series, and scrolling through social networks. Her friends, Beth and Naomi, often stopped by to support her. Andrew was unhappy with the time constraints, but Katie tried to compensate for this with her attention. Once the healing process was complete, She happily had a night out with friends to show off her new look. At the meeting, her friends were amazed. Katie came in a tight dress that emphasized her figure. Her updated look was a work of art-perfect contours, smooth skin, and vibrant makeup that added to her youthful appearance. During dinner, Katie ordered a cocktail and casually discussed the news. Despite the friendly banter of her friends, she felt on top. After dinner, the girls took a walk, discussing plans for the future. Katie enjoyed her new look and the attention it attracted, planning further improvements and new adventures. Sitting in the car, she admired her perfect face on the front camera screen and applied lipstick to her thick, bee-stung lips. When she got home, she saw Andrew lying on the bed, tired after a hard day at work, but she did not go up to him, but quietly slipped into the bathroom. There she took another intimate photo for Instagram, covering her huge silicone breasts with an elegant, well-groomed palm. Then Katie took a small bottle of tequila from her bag. She rarely drank this much, usually only at parties, but today she wanted to relax. Without waiting for a special occasion, she took a few sips. Walking over to the bathroom mirror, Katie straightened her hair and put on her favorite lingerie. With a feeling of confidence and slight excitement, she left the bathroom and headed to the bedroom. There, she flirtatiously approached Andrew, trying to distract him from his work. The evening passed in an atmosphere of laughter and relaxed communication. After dinner, Andrew fell asleep and Katie went out onto the terrace with a glass of wine. She enjoyed the view of the city at night and reflected on her life. Memories of my past career in the stock market seemed like a distant memory. Back then, her days were filled with news, stock analysis, and endless arguments with colleagues. Now her main concerns were choosing clothes and creating stylish looks for Instagram photos. Being frivolous and beautiful turned out to be much easier and more enjoyable, Katie thought, taking another sip. It seemed to her that life had become more vibrant, although sometimes there was a feeling that she was missing out on something. To dispel doubts, Katie opened the Stock Quotes app, but quickly closed it because the screens with numbers seemed boring and confusing to her. She decided to go back to bed and do what she really liked: communicating with subscribers. Lately, she has been enjoying virtual likes and comments more than actual meetings with friends. She found them envious and boring, especially Beth and Naomi. Katie posted a new photo highlighting her stylish outfit and wrote a poll. What should I add to my look? Having received a lot of approving comments, she felt on top. The time on the phone flew by, and feeling pleasantly tired, she fell asleep thinking about how to improve her next post. Her visits to the gym became less frequent, and mostly Katie went to the spa, lay on a sun lounger, and drank a couple of smoothies. Sometimes she had to do a few exercises to post it on Instagram or walk slowly on the treadmill. Due to the size of her butt, running was almost impossible and looked very comical. She became so lazy that she didn't even go down to the restaurant for lunch and ordered food directly to the apartment, easily paying for it with Andrew's credit card. When her husband came home from work, Katie was ready to go to dinner at the restaurant they had planned the night before. As always, she carefully applied her makeup and put on her sluttiest dress, barely holding her fake breasts and hugging her ass and hips. However, Andrew walked in and looked very upset. Something shocked him greatly, but Katie did not pay attention to it and gave her husband a kiss. "Katie, I have a tragedy at work. Let me think and be alone," he said calmly. "Hey, are we, not going to a restaurant?" Katie asked, pouting her big lips. "Katie, it's not a priority right now," he responded. "Tell me, I'm your wife." "Katie, my boss died today. He had a heart attack. I'm just in shock. He never had any health problems. He didn't even have a wife or children to whom he could leave an inheritance. He was a brilliant lawyer and leader, and I owe almost everything I achieved to him. Only a month ago, I became his right hand, and now I will have to manage the company myself." "Hey, my sugar daddy is the big boss now. Why are you upset?" Katie purred and asked. "And who will receive his inheritance? He seems to have no one." Katie vaguely remembered that she had previously been involved in the division of property, but the memories were in a fog. By the way, he always spared nothing for the company and its employees and said a long time ago that he would transfer all his property to his deputy, Andrew said sadly, and only a few seconds later he understood the meaning of these words. Do you mean me? Katie jumped up and down with happiness, also happy that she understood the meaning of such difficult words. Daddy is even richer now. Your boss has a hell of a lot of money. Yours will now be even more luxuriously and sexily dressed, she whispered. I want you, darling, Andrew exclaimed indignantly, but physiology took over. Damn, you are the most beautiful prostitute in the whole world. You were created to spend my money. Andrew had already forgotten about the tragic and sudden death of his boss. Andrew went to the shower, and Katie went to the living room. She grabbed a bottle of wine, poured herself a glass, the way she liked it after sex, and started scrolling through Instagram. Of course, the first thing she posted was another seductive video, almost exposing her breasts. Andrew left the bathroom and for some reason went to his closet, although he always fell asleep after sex. When he returned, he was holding a thick wad of money. Approaching the bed, Andrew confidently threw the money next to Katie and said, Baby, you had sex like a real woman of easy virtue and deserved a reward. Buy yourself something. He knew that his wife had become very greedy and wouldn't be too happy about just a measly $10,000, and he was absolutely right. Hey, do you really think this is good enough for someone like me? You don't understand how expensive it is to be beautiful. Katie frowned in her usual style and turned away from her husband, but this was part of his plans. Andrew hugged his wife and said, Did you really think I didn't appreciate you that much? I'm damn rich now and I can't leave my love unhappy, he whispered in Katie's ear. My wife should be the most gorgeous woman in New York, and everyone should see that. I hope this necklace will help with that. With these words, he handed Katie a box from Cartier. She was delighted with the diamond necklace and immediately tried it on her naked body. She also noticed the receipt, which showed the cost of $80,000 for this jewelry, and even smiled a little excitedly. Oh, Daddy, you are the best, she screamed, and the couple kissed again. His wife, who a couple of years ago was the smartest person in his life, forced him to fall in love with her success and education and destroyed his marriage, and also helped him climb the career ladder due to her successful acquaintances, has now become a stupid woman of easy virtue. In the past, with one trade in the stock market, she could earn 10 of these valuable things, Andrew thought. But at the moment, Katie's only skill was spending his money, and it suited him completely. He hung out with smart people at work, and when he returned home tired, all he wanted was good sex. And Katie provided this. Her gorgeous body, although it looked too artificial due to her obsession with plastic surgery, continued to drive Andrew crazy. The next day was an ordinary day for Katie and one of the key days in Andrew's life. The only thing the trophy wife had planned for that day was a visit to the spa and a leisurely walk on the treadmill, and ordering dinner from a restaurant, because Katie rarely cooked herself, considering it for the poor. Only sometimes she prepared beautiful dishes to post her successes on Instagram. And Andrew was determined to take the position of director of the law firm and senior partner. After morning meetings and taking over the management of the company, he settled into the new office. It was much more spacious than the previous one, with an expensive design and stunning views. Meanwhile, Katie had just woken up and was scrolling through Instagram. After checking social networks in the morning, she went to the shower. After washing, Katie stood naked in front of the mirror and admired her body. Of course, without makeup, it became increasingly difficult to call her beautiful as age and plastic surgery became more noticeable. However, even in this form, her face retained its frozen youth thanks to Botox injections, and her lips looked even sexier. The only imperfection was her stomach, which looked unnaturally flat with noticeable stretch marks from the Brazilian butt lift. But Katie's greatest satisfaction came from looking at her butt. It was outrageously wide and perfectly round. Yes, that's what queens look like, she said out loud. I think it's time for me to grow up a little soon. These breasts are too small for such a butt. Although my butt could be bigger, I wonder when I can go to the doctor. Katie walked away from the mirror and stepped on the scale, which showed 135 pounds, but the girl wasn't particularly upset about it. These are all my beautiful breasts and butt, but I'm skinny, she said. Then Katie decided to record several videos for her Insta. She turned on Cardi B's new album, put her phone on a tripod, and started shaking her huge butt right in front of the camera. Katie posted one of these videos and wrote, "Why be moody when you can rock your bum?" Immediately afterwards, she went to a cafe before visiting the spa. Meeting up with her friends at a cafe, Katie turned heads as usual in her tight leggings and cropped sheer top. The girls went to the spa and sat on the sun loungers by the pool as usual. Bethany said she was going to the doctor for more Botox injections and to have her breast implants enlarged a bit. Katie was happy at first, but then thought to herself, "Damn, this stupid bitch wants to be bigger than me. You can't do this." By the way, I also wanted to call the doctor. "I think my breasts and butt need to be enlarged a little, ha-ha," she replied. "Baby, the main thing is not to overdo it and turn into a monster," answered Naomi, who has much more modest figures. However, Katie didn't stop. It was already an obsession. She couldn't lose in the arms race. Somehow, all her body augmentation operations did not turn her into a silicone monster, but, on the contrary, increased her sexuality and elevated her above her friends. The eyes of everyone, even the most ardent opponents of plastic surgery, are drawn to her huge, protruding butt or buried in her bottomless cleavage. "I know what I'm doing. You're just jealous that you don't have such volumes," Katie answered. "By the way, my Andrew became the big boss yesterday. Now he drives his own Rolls-Royce to work. Can you believe it?" Katie exclaimed. "Wow, cool," Naomi and Beth responded almost simultaneously. "Yesterday, he gave me this Cartier necklace, and he had great sex, haha." Katie showed a photo of the necklace on her phone. Naomi and Bethany stared at the screen, biting their lips. Of course, their husbands were also rich, but they could not afford such a luxurious life. Despite the fact that her brain was regularly under the influence of alcohol, memory problems, and was slow in thinking, she clearly remembered that a week ago Beth had complained to her friends that her husband had been demoted from his job at the bank due to a bad report. They even had to cancel a planned weekend in Miami and temporarily reduce their appetites. Naomi's rapper husband was also not ideal. He was losing popularity and began to receive less money from streaming services and concerts. Katie decided to take advantage of the situation to show off to her friends and prove her superiority. Then the conversation continued on the usual topics, and soon the girls went their separate ways. Beth and Katie agreed to see Dr. Anderson the following week. Andrew's week as boss of the company has been quite a difficult one. He had many responsibilities, which were not easy to cope with alone. He often stayed late at work and didn't even have the energy to have sex with his wife, which Katie was very unhappy with. One evening, Katie lay in front of the TV and watched with interest the new edition of the next reality show. Suddenly, Naomi called her. Katie thought that her friend would suggest spending the evening together, but she was mistaken. "Hi, how are you?" Naomi's voice rang out. "Hey, I'm just laying around watching the show," Katie replied. "Baby, I have an offer that you will definitely like," Naomi said interestedly. "And what?" "You know, my husband Tyler is not going through the best moment of his career, but he is absolutely confident that his new track will become a super hit. But he needs a decent clip. It's going to be directed by a director who worked with Drake. Can you believe it? He said I should film there and I could invite my girlfriends." "I know, baby. You've been dreaming about this for a long time," Naomi said excitedly. "Wow, that sounds cool. I'm in. I never doubted you. We start tomorrow. The main thing is to take a bikini. We are filming a video on a yacht." Katie was delighted. She had long been a fan of Cardi B and Nicki Minaj and dreamed of starring in a real rap video. The next day, Katie grabbed some of her skimpiest swimsuits and happily went to the shoot with Naomi and Beth. They were brought to a huge yacht rented by Naomi's husband for filming. There were already a lot of people and, of course, the film crew. The director's name was Prince. He was short, but looked very stylish. All his clothes were snowy white, which contrasted perfectly with his dark skin. Katie's attention was also drawn to the gold watch on his hands, which clearly proved his success. As she walked past him, Katie turned her head back and saw that Prince's gaze was fixed on her ass, tightly wrapped in leggings. When their eyes met, Katie winked at him to tease him and continued walking, swaying her ass seductively. Of course, she had no intention of cheating on her husband, but nevertheless she could not help but enjoy the moment. Every man's gaze that fell on her body intoxicated Katie and strengthened her unshakable confidence in her own sexuality. When everyone had gathered, Prince talked about the concept for the video. According to the plot, Naomi was supposed to play the main role, the girl with whom Tyler will fall in love after seeing her for the first time at a party on a yacht. Katie and Beth knew about this in advance, so they weren't too upset. After an hour of preparation, filming began. Prince conducted the process very professionally, and even Tyler unconditionally followed all the instructions because he understood that this could be the last chance to save his career. Suddenly, after part of the video, Prince stopped filming and walked up to Tyler. "Dude, something's wrong. It won't be a worldwide hit, I see. We need something fresh." Tyler was shocked and didn't know what to say. "Give me 5 minutes for a smoke break. Everything will be fine," Prince said quickly and stepped aside. At this point, Katie, Naomi, and Beth were having fun, imagining themselves as the stars of the video. They moved and tried to read the newly invented text. After Naomi and Bethany's failed freestyle attempts, Katie said, "No, no, look at me," began to move her body, and, to her surprise, words themselves began to come to her mind. "Wow, baby, you are talented," Beth exclaimed. "How did you come up with this so quickly?" "Ha ha, somehow it just happened," Katie answered happily. At that moment, they heard applause in the distance. They turned around and were stunned. It was Prince who was applauding. He approached the girls and said, "Brilliant. I know what we need. Tyler, if you want a super hit, I'll give it to you." Everyone looked at Prince in surprise and waited for him to share his idea. "You need a female verse on the track, dude. It will be amazing." "Yes, that's exactly how it should be. You will tell how you saw this girl and fell in love. And in the middle of the track, she will rap." Prince pointed his finger at Katie that she only wants your money. "It won't be in the track, only in the video. Like a different meaning, you know." Everyone froze for a moment, and suddenly Naomi shouted, "Hey, that won't do. Tyler, what the hell? You promised that I would be in charge." Prince took Tyler by the shoulder and said calmly, "Look, dude, you hired me to make this video a worldwide hit. Do as I say, otherwise I won't promise anything. I'm absolutely sure you want her verse," he said, pointing at Katie again. "Damn, okay, I trust you. Naomi, baby, I will have many videos after this. I promise you will be with me in every one of them," Tyler said, taking his wife's hand. Katie was delighted with what happened, because she could not even dream that she would have her own verse in a rap video. Her pride was tearing her apart from the inside. She looked down on her friends. "Well, let's start over," Prince ordered, and the film crew got to work. Prince approached Katie and said, "Baby, I have great lyrics for your part of the track. I wrote them for Megan Thee Stallion, but she didn't like them. I immediately realized that you have talent, but now I don't have time for you to come up with lyrics yourself, okay?" "Wow, was this text for Megan?" Katie answered enthusiastically because she was also a fan of hers. "Yes, she tried it in a music studio, but decided to rewrite it. She didn't like the words. I'll send you a text now. Try to rehearse. You have 20 minutes. Katie opened the message with the text of her part and began to read with interest. Suddenly, she heard Beth's voice. "Hey, baby, let me see what you have there." "Hey, I have to sing in 20 minutes. You have to move your body stupidly, and I have to play the leading role," answered Katie, who had already decided to become a rap star. Preparation time ended, and Prince asked Katie to try reading her part. The music started and Katie began, moving her body rhythmically. After a short pause, Prince exclaimed, "Brilliant. You performed these lyrics even better than Megan. Tyler, this is definitely going to be a hit." Katie was delighted. "Crap, did I rap better than Megan Thee Stallion herself?" she thought. Filming of the video began, and while Naomi and Bethany played the role of ordinary girls from a yacht party, Katie was the queen of this party, in a silver bikini, hugging her huge breasts with large diamond-shaped earrings. Underneath was a matching silver thong, giving a view of her incredible ass. Katie's face was the epitome of sexuality. Prince had a whole team of makeup artists apply luxurious makeup on her. Her face was glistening, her fingers were elegantly manicured, her smile was snow white, and her platinum blonde hair fell right down to her ass. Prince took close-up shots of her gorgeous curves, savoring every frame. Bethany and Naomi were sort of extras in the background of this queen. They were borderline jealous, but were even angrier because Katie was actually sexier than both of them because she was so much bigger than them. The last point in the video, and the real catalyst for Naomi, was another idea from the famous director. Prince wanted the video to end with a passionate kiss between Katie and Tyler. "Damn freak, you made this bitch the main one, and now you force her to kiss my husband." Naomi shouted to the prince. "Baby, we're almost done. It's just a kiss for the camera. I only love you, you know that," Tyler reassured her. Naomi frowned and walked behind the cell where Beth was sitting. At that moment, Katie looked down at her friends, realizing her superiority. During filming, she hungrily bit Tyler's lips and put his hands on her ass. He didn't even resist, making this kiss as natural as possible. Her friends looked on, feeling both anger and pleasure. "Damn, this bitch just radiates sexuality," Naomi thought. The video was shot, and the director was very pleased with his work. He said the video will be released in about a week along with Tyler's new album. Katie was driving home and thinking about how the public would appreciate her rap. Does she really have talent? She had no idea what was waiting for her at home. Andrew sat at the table, feeling the growing tension from his conversation with Lily. Her words sounded encouraging, but deep down he was torn apart by contradictions. Yes, he wanted to end this farce that his family life had become, but the memories of the old days still held him. He was once crazy about Kathleen. Their intimate relationship was stormy, lively, full of passion. She knew how to enliven the most ordinary moments with her energy. She was a bright, confident woman who took your breath away. But gradually everything changed. At first it was just small changes, new outfits, a more active presence on social networks. Then came cosmetic procedures and then plastic surgeries, each of which made her less like the woman he fell in love with. Andrew recalled how at first he tried to support her. He understood her desire to look better, to stay on top. But at some point Kathleen crossed the line. She drowned in the world of filters, likes, and perfect pictures. Her days were dictated by filming, social events, and parties where alcohol flowed like a river. He saw the sincerity and humanity that had once drawn him to her give way to a craving for approval from strangers. He couldn't deny that there was still physical attraction between them. Kathleen was attractive, and their sex life, although sparse in recent years, remained passionate. But this was not enough. Andrew realized that he needed more than just physical attraction. He longed for warmth, support, real intimacy, the kind that cannot be measured by likes or number of subscribers. Lily, with her natural beauty and quiet confidence, became a complete contrast to this bright but superficial world. She didn't pretend or try to look better than she really was. It was her sincerity and simplicity that reminded Andrew of what happiness could be. He looked at Lily, who was still holding his hand, and suddenly felt a surge of relief. Here, in this cozy cafe, his life seemed less confusing. But the thought of talking to Kathleen, how she would take the news of the divorce, clouded his mind again. Her reaction could be unpredictable. Andrew knew that Kathleen could put on quite a show, both literally and figuratively. This can't go on much longer, he thought, feeling Lily looking at him with quiet understanding. But damn, why does it have to be so hard? "Are you sure this is the right decision?" Lily asked cautiously, looking at Andrew through her cup of coffee. "I don't want to ruin your life." Andrew sighed heavily and ran his hand through his hair. "Lily, my life has long been ruined," he answered bitterly. "Kathleen is no longer the woman I fell in love with. She became a stranger. It's like we live in different worlds. I want a family, children, real intimacy, but instead—" He fell silent, unable to find words. Lily nodded sympathetically. She knew how difficult this decision was for Andrew. "I'll file the divorce notice as soon as I'm sure it's the right thing to do. But I need time. You know how Kathleen might react," he added. Lily took his hand and squeezed it in support. "I'm not rushing you. The main thing is that you yourself are happy." Andrew smiled at her. This simple, kind woman became for him an island of calm in the chaos that filled his life with Kathleen. Andrew smiled at Lily. This simple, kind woman became for him an island of calm in the chaos that had long taken over his life with Kathleen. Lily had a rare ability to listen, to be there without demanding anything in return, and this endlessly attracted Andrew. For the first time in a long time, he felt that there was a person next to him who truly understood him. Meanwhile, in their home, immersed in the glossy shine of modern luxury, Kathleen returned from filming. The huge windows in the living room let in the soft light of the setting sun, which played with reflections on the marble floor. She kicked off her designer shoes by the door and was enthusiastically scrolling through photos on her phone, skimming through snaps from a recent photo shoot. Fingers slid across the screen, and a smile of self-satisfaction shone on his face. Every pose, every angle was carefully calibrated to demonstrate her ideal image, the one that she had painstakingly built over the years. Kathleen enjoyed these moments of recognition, as if she were validating herself through the approval of her followers. However, noticing that Andrew still had not returned, her smile faded slightly. She frowned, glancing briefly at the clock on the wall. "He's been staying there for a long time," she muttered under her breath, her voice sounding more irritated than worried. Her thoughts briefly lingered on her husband, but quickly switched to the next task. She decided that now was the time to update her Instagram, because a few hours without posting could be too long a break for her audience. Heading to the bathroom, Kathleen casually tossed her hair over her shoulder. She turned on the lights. Bright lamps illuminated the perfectly furnished room, done in white and gold tones. Looking at herself in the mirror, she assessed her own reflection with a slight grin. Kathleen adjusted a thin layer of highlighter on her cheekbones and squinted, choosing the right angle for the selfie. She didn't just take photographs, she created them with every publication. With every image, she tried to convince the world and herself that she was still in control of the situation. A few days later, when Kathleen, unaware of anything, was preparing to release a new video, her thoughts were only occupied with the upcoming premiere. She sat at her dressing table, filled with jars of creams and cosmetics, looking over the guest list for the party she was planning to throw. My head was spinning with ideas about outfits, decorations, and how to turn the evening into another opportunity to shine. Andrew, meanwhile, decided that it could no longer be delayed. He knew that their conversation would be difficult and possibly destructive, but the lies and indifference that their marriage had been based on in recent years had become unbearable for him. He chose a moment when Kathleen was in a good mood and invited her to dinner. He needed to talk to her, to finally open up, and even if this meant the end of their story, he felt that he had no right to continue this game. The evening promised to be tense. Andrew chose a restaurant for dinner that had once been his and Kathleen's favorite. He remembered how they laughed here, held hands, and discussed dreams. Those memories now seemed like ghosts, distant shadows of what had once been their reality. Kathleen, of course, accepted the invitation. She was in a great mood, anticipating how she would impress everyone with her appearance. Wearing a new designer dress that showed off her figure, she completed the look with statement earrings and sparkly heels. The makeup was flawless, the lips stood out in a rich red color. Her appearance was the embodiment of a glossy ideal so flawless that it seemed almost unreal. When she entered the restaurant, Andrew stood up as he had once done to greet her. For a moment he froze, struck by her beauty, but then reminded himself that this was just a mask behind, which was hiding a woman who had become a stranger to him. He felt his own confidence begin to fade. "You look amazing, as always," he said, extending his hand to help her sit up. "Thank you, darling," she replied, bowing her head in gratitude, but her voice sounded too automatic, as if this gratitude was a habitual duty. Their dinner began with silence. Andrew tried to find the right words to start a conversation, but every time he was stopped by Kathleen's gaze. She glanced around the room, checking to see if anyone was looking at them, and occasionally glanced at her phone. "Kathleen, I want to talk about us," he finally began, gathering his courage. "Of course, honey, what about?" she answered, simultaneously drinking a glass of wine. "About our marriage, about how we live. Or don't live." His voice sounded serious, but calm. Her face instantly lost its cheerful expression. She put her glass down and stared at him, her brows furrowed. "Andrew, if you're talking about me being too busy again, you understand that I'm not doing this just for myself. My subscribers, my audience are part of us, our life. I work for our future." He smiled bitterly. "For the sake of the future? Kat, our present is being destroyed, and you're talking about the future. I want warmth. I want intimacy. I want to know that we are connected by something more than your Instagram posts and my money." Kathleen fell silent, her face frozen. Her eyes intensely searched for an answer, but only irritation was spinning in her head. For her life was on the rise. She was successful, in demand, and confident. And now this conversation. "Are you saying that I'm not trying hard enough for you? Am I doing something wrong?" Her voice became louder, and anger flashed in her eyes. "No, it's not that you're doing something wrong. You just stopped being the Kathleen I loved. I want. The real you, the one who loved me for who I am, and not for what I can give you." These words hit Kathleen like a slap in the face. She felt her pride being wounded, but instead of thinking, she decided to attack. "The real me? Are you sure that you yourself remain the same? You are completely immersed in your work, in your endless affairs. Maybe it's you who's changed, Andrew. Maybe the problem is you." He fell silent, looking down at his hands. Yes, perhaps he has changed too, but that didn't matter now. He felt that the conversation had reached a dead end. "Perhaps," he finally answered, "but we need to change something. You can't live like this anymore." Kathleen stood up, her face flushed. She grabbed her purse and said coldly, "I'm tired of listening to this. I'm leaving." And she left, leaving Andrew alone at the table. He felt a heavy sense of loss fill his chest. He took the first step, but realized that the road to freedom would be long and painful. That evening he returned home, but Kathleen was no longer there. Her car disappeared from the garage, and only her abandoned jacket remained on the bed in the room. Andrew sat on the edge of the bed and covered his face with his hands. Many difficult decisions lay ahead of him, but he knew that he had to go to the end. Andrew, sitting at his desk in his office, pondered his next steps. The night after Kathleen left was restless, but it gave him the opportunity to finally realize that there was no turning back. His marriage was an empty shell, and further life with Kathleen became impossible. Now all that remained for him was to competently and calmly complete this stage of his life. The first thing Andrew did was take care of finances. He knew that the divorce would be expensive. Kathleen was used to a luxurious life, and her claims were likely to be high. But Andrew was prepared. He called his financial advisor and lawyer to discuss strategy. "We need to make sure that her claims don't affect the company's assets," Andrew said, motioning for the lawyer to sit down. "This is not just my business, but the work of the whole team." The lawyer, an elderly man with clear, confident speech, nodded. "Certainly. We will try to highlight your personal assets and minimize possible payments." "Do you have a prenuptial agreement?" Andrew shook his head. "No. When we got married, I didn't even think about such things." "It's bad, but not critical," the lawyer answered, looking through the list of property and assets. "We can focus on your current income. Make sure any expensive gifts you give Kathleen are documented. This will be proof of her expenses." The consultant suggested dividing the funds into several accounts, one of which would be frozen until the end of the divorce process. He also recommended transferring some of the assets into a trust, which would be protected from Kathleen's claims. Andrew agreed, mentally preparing himself for a long legal battle. But he felt relieved. The process had begun. Andrew did not delay the formalities. The next day, he met with his lawyer to sign divorce papers. "We will immediately submit a request for the division of property and offer her an adequate amount to avoid a conflict," said the lawyer, handing over the documents for signature. "But be prepared. If she doesn't agree, the matter may drag on." Andrew nodded. He knew Kathleen wouldn't go down without a fight, but he was ready for it. He signed the papers and, holding the copy in his hands, felt a huge weight lift from his shoulders. Now it was a matter of legal processes. After submitting the documents, Andrew felt the air become lighter. His mind became clearer, and he could focus on the future. The first thing he decided to do was meet with Lily to discuss their plans. He called her in the evening. "Lily, I filed for divorce. I'd like to meet to talk." "Of course, Andrew," she replied, and he caught a warm smile in her voice. The next day they met in a small, cozy cafe, which became their favorite place. Lily met him in a light dress, without makeup, but with shining eyes. "You look calmer," she remarked, sitting down opposite him. "Yes, I took a step that I should have taken a long time ago," he replied. "But there is still a lot of work ahead." They discussed the future, carefully and thoughtfully. Lily understood that Andrew needed time to finalize his divorce and adapt to his new life. "You know, I don't expect you to rush to me with a ring right after the divorce," Lily said, looking into his eyes. "The main thing is that you be honest with yourself." These words strengthened his confidence. Lily was the woman with whom he wanted to build a new life. She did not demand proof from him, did not impose her expectations, she was simply there. Andrew returned home determined to do everything right. He set up a guest room so that Kathleen could pick up her things at her convenience. He wrote her a letter in which he calmly and respectfully stated his intentions. "Kathleen, I am grateful for the time we spent together. You were an important part of my life, but now our paths are diverging. I hope we can complete this with dignity and respect for each other." Andrew sent the letter and felt the weight he had been carrying for years begin to disappear. Now he focused on work and on building a relationship with Lily. He wanted to take her on a little trip to show her how important she was to him. He chose a house in the mountains, away from the hustle and bustle, where they could spend time together and thoughtfully discuss their future. When Kathleen received the divorce papers, her world seemed to collapse. She sat in her perfectly appointed living room, surrounded by symbols of success, designer bags, expensive jewelry, and the latest shoe collection. The papers that the courier had just delivered lay on the table like a challenge to her new reality. She opened them with a slight trembling in her hands, hoping that it was a mistake or a misunderstanding. But every word in the document was clear and merciless. Andrew demanded a divorce. The reason is insurmountable differences. Kathleen felt a mixture of shock, anger, and pain. Tears flashed in her eyes, but they immediately dried up, giving way to rage. "How could he do this? After everything I've done for him?" she said to herself, clutching the documents in her hands. She began to walk around the room, looking at her luxurious things. All this was her merit, her choice, her lifestyle. Wasn't that supposed to make her happy? Why then did her heart break in pain? A few days later, when Kathleen was trying to regain her usual mood, another piece of news came. The video in which she starred went online. At first, she was delighted. She put on her best outfit, settled in front of the TV, and turned it on, ready to enjoy her triumph. But the more she looked, the more her smile faded. The clip was sexually explicit, highlighting her artificial appearance and presenting her as a caricature of a woman who is only interested in money. Her rap, although performed with passion, sounded empty and soulless. Katie saw not herself, but a product created by her new friends to sell the picture. The comments under the video were merciless. Some admired her figure, but most criticized her image. "This is too much, even for a rap video. She looks like a plastic doll." It's all so unnatural. Where are the real emotions? Kathleen turned off the screen for the first time in a long time and remained in complete silence. She sat down on the sofa, clasped her knees with her hands, and began to cry. Her ideal life, built on external splendor, was bursting at the seams. Andrew's departure, the reactions to the video, loneliness among friends who only used her for their own purposes, all this made her think. She remembered herself as she was 10 years ago, smart, ambitious, full of dreams and goals. Then she looked for meaning in her work, strived for success, and, most importantly, valued relationships that were built on trust and love. Now, looking at her reflection in the mirror, she saw a woman lost in the pursuit of ideals imposed by society. Her face, although flawless thanks to Botox and makeup, seemed alien to her. Her body, which she had considered her greatest achievement for so long, suddenly ceased to bring satisfaction. Kathleen picked up her phone and scrolled through her old photos. There she was with Andrew, laughing, natural, happy. Her eyes sparkled with real joy, not the reflection of a selfie ring light. "What did I do to myself?" she whispered, looking at the girl she once was. That night, for the first time in a long time, Kathleen did not post a single post on Instagram. She decided to spend time with herself, trying to find answers to questions that she had been avoiding for too long. Her realization didn't come right away, but she slowly began to put herself back together. She turned down new surgeries, began returning to the finance job she once loved, and searched for her true self hidden behind layers of makeup and social expectations. Kathleen knew that rebuilding herself and her life would not be easy. But she decided to try because she realized her happiness is not the number of likes, but the ability to be herself. And precisely this became a wall between her and Andrew. Behind all this life of a beautiful doll, she lost herself, her love. There was tense silence in the courtroom. Kathleen sat in an impeccably tailored black suit, her face, despite professional makeup, looking tired. Andrew, on the other hand, was dressed in a formal gray suit, but his appearance was much calmer. He sat next to the lawyer and occasionally nodded in agreement, as if it was just another business contract. The divorce process was quick. The lawyers agreed on everything in advance. Kathleen received a house, several valuable paintings, and her entire designer collection. Andrew kept investment portfolios, a car and property outside the city. They both decided that it was better to split the joint bank account in half. "Is that all, Mrs. Rijards?" asked the judge. Kathleen felt the Mrs. pierce her. From today, she will become Kathleen Gray again. She nodded, but her voice changed, and she said nothing. Andrew, on the other hand, looked determined. When the judge declared them officially divorced, he stood up, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from his shoulders, and looked at Kathleen for the first time in a long time. Their eyes met, but he said nothing. After signing the last paper, they went out into the street through different doors, as if their lives had already diverged in opposite directions. The next day, Kathleen was sitting in the psychologist's office. The office was cozy and warm, soft light, an armchair with cushions, and the aroma of herbal tea. Dr. Lawrence, a calm, middle-aged woman with piercing eyes, offered her a cup of tea. "How do you feel?" she began. Kathleen sighed, looking at the pattern on the carpet under her feet. "Empty," she finally said. "It's like everything was taken out of me." Dr. Lawrence nodded, allowing her to continue. "I built this life for so long. I believed that it was ideal. And now I don't even know who I am." She talked about the years spent chasing the ideal, about how she gradually lost herself, adapting to other people's expectations. The tears flowed freely, and it was the first time in a long time that she felt free to hold back. "The first step is to admit that you want change," Dr. Lawrence said softly. "And the second is to start asking yourself questions. What is really important to you? Who are you if you remove everything that has been imposed on you?" Kathleen thought about it. It was not easy for her to answer, but at that moment she felt light and was able to open up. Meanwhile, Andrew seemed to be moving on. A day after the divorce, he boarded a plane with Lilia, whom he began dating. They were heading to the Maldives warm waters, endless beaches, and the promise of carefree days awaited them. Lily, who had cheerfully supported him in recent months, seemed the complete opposite of Kathleen. She was natural, slightly sassy, and free from labels. "Well, how are you? Now you're officially free," she smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. Andrew smiled, but his eyes showed a mixture of relief and sadness. "You know, Lily, it was hard. Kat and I have come a long way. But I think it was right." The flight was calm, and he began to allow himself to relax. However, somewhere deep inside, he knew that completely forgetting everything would be more difficult than he would like to admit. Kathleen returned home from the psychologist's office and for the first time in a long time allowed herself to just be. No makeup, no perfect outfits. She made tea and sat in the living room, looking out the window at the gray sky. Her life was her own now, and it was scary, but it also brought a tiny spark of hope. Divorce was the ending, but it was also the beginning. She didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time in a long time, she was ready to take the first step without looking back. She had to deal with everything that her friends had imposed on her, restore her body in all possible ways, and also return to work because that was all she was. One quiet winter evening, when snowflakes were slowly swirling outside the window, Kathleen, covered with a soft blanket, leafed through an old album with photographs. Her fingers gently touched the yellowed pages, each of which contained a part of her life. Suddenly, her gaze stopped on one photograph, which seemed to pull her out of the usual passage of time. In the photo, she and Andrew are young, carefree, and, as it seemed to her, infinitely happy. This was that period of their lives when the world seemed to them full of possibilities, and their love an unbreakable fortress. Her heart suddenly sank, as if the photograph had awakened something long forgotten inside her, hidden behind the bustle of everyday life. She remembered how they laughed until they cried, walking in the rain, how they held hands, as if they were afraid to let each other go. Then there was real intimacy between them, rare and precious, like pure crystal. Kathleen looked at her face in the photo, young, radiant, full of hope. She was different. It seemed to her that in those days she radiated intelligence and determination, as if there was a fire burning inside her that illuminated everything around her. In her heart lived the strength to dream about the future and believe that anything is possible. Now, looking at herself from the present, she felt like a stranger. Glitter and success appeared in her life, but they turned out to be superficial, like a thin layer of gilding hiding emptiness. In pursuit of the external attributes of happiness, it was as if she had lost herself, having lost that girl who once looked forward so boldly. My chest sank with longing for that time, for that self, and for that love that seemed eternal. Karma, Kathleen whispered, realizing how deeply her own actions had affected her life. She understood that once, with her perseverance and desire for success, she was able to destroy Andrew's family, robbing him of happiness and stability. Now another woman has taken control of her life, depriving her of true happiness and inner harmony. Artificial beauty, noisy parties, alcohol, and the world of social networks. All this can charm a man for a while and create the illusion of carefree happiness. But when the question of choice arises, most men lean towards the one who gives warmth, care, and support. Alas, Kat relied on the illusory, exchanging depth for surface, and she lost this game. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.